Chapter 212. Just as he finished speaking, the young woman and the man who had been beaten earlier scrambled out and knelt down. If it was now, even though they knew it was a disaster if they could avoid it, they probably wouldn't want to come out. However, they were unlucky enough to be implicated. Could they deny that they were from Marquis Chongping's household? If they didn't come out, even if they hesitated for a moment, they would probably be betrayed by the gazes of others. This subject's Chuisher from Marquis Chongping's household greets Your Highness. May Your Highness live for 1,000 years. After speaking, they knelt on the ground, not daring to raise their heads or speak. Their trembling bodies betrayed their true emotions. Marquis Chongping's household. Li Hongyuan murmured. Marquis Chongping's household is in decline, but the Chui clan still has some foundation. Even if they don't have any foundation, they should at least put on a show. They don't even care about their face anymore, producing such a thing. Just based on that girl's attitude, she didn't have the slightest bit of modesty that a noble family should have. Even if they were in decline and couldn't support themselves financially, they shouldn't have lost their strength of character. The Chuisher's face could be said to have been completely thrown away. Li Hongyuan had never been polite with his words. He didn't know how to be tactful. He was used to slapping people's faces and poking at people's pain. However, with his status, even if he tore open their scars and poked them until they were drenched in blood, they could only endure it without daring to make a sound. Normal people. Fine, normal people wouldn't be able to raise him to such a level. The faces of the two kneeling people flushed red. But what could they do? That was all their own doing. Your Highness, this servant knows a thing or two about Marquis Chongping's household. At this moment, Mama Gong suddenly spoke. If it was a normal servant, Li Hongyuan naturally wouldn't pay attention. However, normal servants wouldn't dare to speak at this time. Li Hongyuan glanced at Jingwen. Seeing that she seemed a little curious, he decided to forget it. Since his wife was curious, there was no harm in listening. He could also naturally take a look at her. Speak. Before Mama Gong had left the capital, in order to pave the way for Jingwen, she had naturally done her research on the various families in the capital. As for Marquis Chongping's estate, it was probably a coincidence that she had a very detailed understanding of it. Marquis Chongping's current marchioness is actually the second wife. It is said that she is bedridden all year round. Her concubine mother is in charge of the household, and the marchioness will only appear when necessary. Back then, Marquis Chongping's first wife died in childbirth, and he remarried his current wife. After being married to Marquis Chongping for more than 10 years, she was said to be a hen that couldn't lay eggs. Marquis Chongping took pity on her weak body and couldn't bear to see her suffer the pain of bearing children, so she received quite a lot of praise. At this point, Nanny Gong revealed a mocking smile. But in reality, this Marquis Chongping's wife is just a decoration. She usually doesn't appear, not because her body is weak, but because she is imprisoned in a small courtyard in the Marquis's estate. Everyone was in an uproar. Outsiders had mixed opinions about the Marquis of Chongping. Some said that he was easily swayed and had a weak personality, while others said that he valued relationships and had a tender heart for the fairer sex. So it wasn't like that at all. However, looking at the deathly pale faces of the people in Marquis Chongping's fu, this might be true. Li Hongyuan twiddled his fingers. He never cared about irrelevant people. Continue. He spoke casually. Marquis Chongping has a beloved woman. This person has nothing but a face. Wasn't this saying used to describe our Jin Qin Wang? He really dared to say it. Everyone carefully peeked at Li Hongyuan, but seeing that his expression was normal, they couldn't help but silently criticize him. Marquis Chongping was so infatuated with her that his first wife died in childbirth. Because that woman also gave birth on the same day, all of the midwives and doctors were taken over by that side. However, I don't know if her life is strong or not, but her mother died while she lived well. It seems that it is this young lady. Nanny Gong's gaze fell on Miss Chui, who was in an unusual sorry state. Her emotions couldn't be seen. That woman's life doesn't seem so good. So many people suffered, but the child she gave birth to died prematurely. Everyone pondered over these words. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that it wasn't right. Especially the man who was still kneeling. His expression was abnormally ugly and filled with deep hatred. He didn't know that his own mother had died like this. How could his father be so ruthless? That was his first wife. Marquis Chongping's beloved concubine lost her child and had a transference effect towards the first wife's child. She begged Marquis Chongping to let her raise the child for the time being. Marquis Chongping pitied his beloved concubine and pitied the fact that the child was born without a mother, so he nodded and agreed. This first wife's child was raised by a lowly concubine. They had always had a deep mother-daughter relationship. Even when that woman gave birth to another child, this didn't change. This young lady had always called her mother. A child raised by a woman without any merit, not knowing the rules, not following propriety, not knowing shame and not following etiquette, can be understood. Many people's gazes fell on Nanny Gong. Her ability to trample on people was quite impressive. Originally, without the first wife as a stumbling block, everything was perfect. However, as a marquis, how could he not have a wife to hold the fort in the marquis's household? A lowly servant of unknown origin naturally couldn't be made the marquis's wife. However, if he were to remarry, what if she made things difficult for his beloved concubine? Thus, he carefully selected someone who was willing to be a puppet. The second wife of the Marquis of Chongping was only willing because Marquis Chongping wanted to repay her kindness. This young lady took a thief as her mother, humiliated her own brother, slapped her own sister-in-law in public, and even acted like an elder sister to that thief's child. Nanny Gong's gaze fell on the kneeling man again. As the Marquis's eldest son, any servant can trample on him. When he reached the age of marriage, I married a merchant's daughter for money. I even glorified it by saying that she was my benefactor in the past. As a person, I can't be heartless. Thus, I didn't despise her status and even let the eldest son marry her to show my benevolence. Under normal circumstances, a merchant's daughter wouldn't be qualified to be the Marquis's eldest son's concubine. The two kneeling people, the Marquis Chongping's eldest son and eldest daughter-in-law, had been afraid before, but now they were unwilling and in pain. There was also the shame and embarrassment of having their wounds torn open. As for this merchant's daughter, she was only an unfavored concubine's daughter. She looked like she had a large dowry, but not a single copper coin went into her hands. After all, that was only a transaction between the Marquis's household and the merchant's family. They gave up money to buy the path they wanted. How could they give up a beloved daughter to a man with no future to speak of? Fortunately, this merchant's daughter, other than her soft nature and only knowing how to swallow her anger, is still passable in other aspects. The husband and wife pair supported each other and could be considered harmonious. To say, this was countless times more exciting than the play on the stage. Marquis Chongping's second son, born from his beloved concubine, was recorded under the Marquis's wife's name at birth. He was raised in the name of the first wife. It is said that he is distinguished and elegant, with brilliant literary talent. Logically speaking, with today's situation, he shouldn't be absent. Everyone looked around. Over here, someone shouted, following which, a path opened up in that direction. It's not my fault, it's not my fault. Probably because he was in the middle of puberty. His voice sounded like that of a duck, and there was even a hint of sobbing. Someone seemed to want to push him out, but seeing no one appear after a long time, one could roughly guess what state he was in. This time, without Li Hongyuan needing to instruct someone, a guard from the front of the mountain dragged the person over. He looked to be only 13 or 14 years old, but at this moment, he was hugging his head tightly, wailing loudly. "It's not my fault, I'm not from the Marquis's household, I'm not." Everyone looked at each other. In order to not be implicated, he even denied his own identity. His family's ancestor? Wasn't this too much of a coward? Those who originally knew him and even had a good relationship with him were all ashamed to see him at this time. This youth was thrown a few steps away from Li Hongyuan. Li Hongyuan looked down from above. That gaze was like looking at an inanimate object. Being so secretive, is it you who can't be seen, or is it Ben Wang? When they wanted to nitpick, they would definitely say that everything they did was wrong. The youth was kicked, clearly wanting him to remove his hand, but he still hugged his head tightly, covered his face and shivered. Moreover, there was a puddle of water on the ground. Someone exclaimed, and then hurriedly retreated. Probably no one would know that the reason why this person was so afraid of Li Hongyuan was because last year he was audacious and self-righteous, or it could be said that a newborn calf was not afraid of a tiger. He thought that even if Jin Qin Wang was a Wangya, he could not be lawless. He courted death and came to provoke him. The result was naturally ruthless, and he was clearly told that if he dared to appear again, he would be completely crippled. The people around Li Hongyuan had many tricks up their sleeves. This second young Master Chui's psychological shadow had not disappeared until now. Seeing Jin Qin Wang, this shadow was instantly magnified 10 times, 100 times. He was terrified to the extreme, pissing his pants in terror and not daring to let Li Hongyuan see his face. In fact, he was purely thinking too much. In the sea of people that Li Hongyuan had taught a lesson, he did not have the effort to remember who a small fish or shrimp was, or what kind of face he had. Even if the people around him remembered him well, they would not remind Li Hongyuan when they had nothing to do. Because that was not asking for credit but seeking death. Li Hongyuan's face was dark. He reached out to grab Jingwan's hand and walked away. Clean it up. Everyone here was a noble person. If they were tainted, they naturally could not stay. Jingwan was pulled away by Li Hongyuan. In this public place, even husband and wife scrupulously observed etiquette and would not be so intimate. Jingwan tried to pull her hand back, but the result could be imagined. Jingwan also could not make too big of a movement, otherwise it would only attract more attention. After entering a pavilion not far away, he sat down and motioned for Jingwan to sit next to him. Jingwan looked at him. Many thanks to Wangya, but it is inappropriate for this subject to stand. Li Hongyuan didn't say anything. He just stared straight at her. This matter was not over yet. The related people could not leave, and the unrelated people did not want to leave. Being in the center of everyone's attention, Jingwan's scalp was a little numb. She was a little resentful towards Li Hongyuan, but more than that, she was helpless. Competing with this person, she would probably always be the loser. If the stalemate continued, the situation would only be more awkward. Many thanks to Wangya. Jingwan could only thank him, and then as far as possible, she distanced herself from him. Ben Wang said, "You and Ben Wang have the same honor." Li Hongyuan said after she sat down. Jingwan smiled. Sitting down, she was a lot calmer. This scene naturally stung some people's eyes. Even when he was her fiancé, he could not be so close to her. They had to take into account her reputation. They could not be close to Jingwan and not let her be criticized, but Jin Qin Wang could. For example, just now when they held hands, just like now. How many people saw it, but they all looked down and pretended not to see it. Jingwan was calm, and then she asked Sun Yijia to sit down next to her. Sun Yijia glanced at Li Hongyuan. Seeing that he did not express anything, for the sake of the child in her belly, she could not stand for long. She took it as his acquiescence, and also sat down without any politeness. Her impression of Li Hongyuan was a little better than before, but only because he was good to Jingwan. Towards him, she still did not have a good impression. Li Hongyuan looked at Gong Mama. "Is it over?" Replying to Wang Yi, Marquis Chongping's only legitimate son is his eldest son. To the outside world, the first child of his beloved concubine who died at birth was born of his first wife. Originally he was living well, but was strangled to death by that woman. Then she let her daughter pretend to be the first wife's leftover child. Nonsense, I am the eldest daughter of the first wife of the Marquis of Chongping's estate, not some concubine's daughter. Don't slander me. Miss Chui hadn't dared to speak up before. No matter how much Mama Gong had told her about her parents, she had remained silent. But now that her identity was involved, she couldn't care less about being afraid and hurriedly jumped out to deny it. However, looking at her flustered expression and her stern expression, everyone understood that what she said was most likely true. Moreover, this young lady definitely knew about her background. It was natural to be close to that thief mother without any barrier. Child Chui, on the other hand, ignored his fear of Li Hongyun and looked at Mammy Gong in disbelief. Is what this Mammy said true? Then, he repeatedly tolerated the so-called legitimate younger sister, thinking that she was still young and was instigated by that bitch. But in the end, his eyes were bloodshot with hatred, and he was so angry that he wanted to kill someone. You already have the answer in your heart. Why bother to ask? When his mother passed away, although he was only 5 or 6 years old, he already remembered that his mother was a gentle and quiet woman. However, his younger sister was unruly, willful, unintelligent, and opinionated. Everyone in his maternal family said that she was not like his mother at all. Because she looked more like her father, no one doubted her identity. Young Master Chui suddenly flew into a rage, punching and kicking the girl who was still clamoring beside him. He was like an enraged beast, and his gaze was as if he wanted to eat her alive. It was not right for a man to beat a girl so violently. However, if all of this was true, then this Master Chui was too pitiful. His own father had killed his own mother. His own brother had been strangled to death, and his identity had been replaced by a concubine's daughter. His honor and glory had all been taken away by a fake son. Marquis Chongping had always said that his eldest son was unworthy and that his second son was clever, and he had the intention of giving the title to his second son. In the past, he really believed that his father did not like him because he had a hard fate. Even if it did not make sense, he would find excuses to deceive himself and others. But when everything was laid bare, everyone could feel the towering hatred. Because of this, no one dared to step forward. At first, Miss Chui still cursed and wanted to retaliate, wanting her father to punish him severely. But gradually, her body hurt more and more, and she felt like she was going to be beaten to death. Big brother, don't hit me, please don't hit me. Don't listen to the nonsense of outsiders. I am your younger sister. Didn't you say that you love me the most? Her last words were like the ignition of a barrel of explosives. She was sometimes cold and sometimes warm to him. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that she would only get close to him when she needed him to be the scapegoat. The rest of the time she would act high and mighty. He thought that he had to please that woman, so he had to do this. But the truth was that he was too stupid. He had mixed up the act with his true feelings. You be asterisk T6, be asterisk T6. You deserve to die, deserve to die. This ruthless kick caused him to spit out blood. Jingwan frowned slightly. She glanced sideways at Sun Yijia and her stomach. This kind of violence and blood was not good. Li Hongyuan saw Jingwan's reaction. Enough! With these two simple words, someone immediately stepped forward to stop them. Master Chui continued like a madman, but he was after all a frail young master. How could he compare to the powerful guards? He was easily subdued. Marquis Chongping, Ben Wang does not need to fabricate charges for him. Not fixing the curtains, favoring the concubine and neglecting the wife, using a concubine as the legitimate wife. These are enough for Marquis Chongping to be replaced with someone else. This could be said to be the final word. Even if these were just Mama Gong's side of the story, so what? Since Jin Qinhuang said it was true, then it must be true. If Marquis Chongping was a marquis with illustrious power, he would naturally not let it go. Even if he was convicted, he would need to investigate. Even Li Hongyuan would not easily say such a thing. However, he only had the title of marquis and a 6th-rank official position. Unfortunately, they were all empty titles. As for the other clansmen of the Chui family, in reality, they vaguely knew that their future would be broader if they were further away from Marquis Chongping Fu. As for that second Master Chui, who was so frightened that he wet his pants, they did not know if he was really dealt with. In any case, he did not appear again. The rest of the matter had nothing to do with them. Whether it was a demotion or a replacement, it was all up to the emperor. Li Hongyuan waved his hand, letting them disperse and do what they should do. Even Sun Yijia's eyes were clearly trying to chase him away. Sun Yijia could not help but twitch her mouth. "Jinghua, what were you drawing just now? Can I take a look?" "I'm not done yet. Why don't you come with me? You can't stand for too long. I'll have someone add a seat for you." Even if Luo Jinghua was a blockhead, he was not completely blind. What's more, he had already experienced the atmosphere between his younger sister and his future brother-in-law that did not allow others to disturb them. If he forced himself to stay on the side, it would only cause him heart-piercing pain. "Okay, I haven't seen you draw outside." He wanted to chase her away. She did not want to stay here. Outside the pavilion, Chen Zhengmin and Sun Yilin had not yet left. These two brothers were in the same boat. Sun Yijia tugged at her elder brother, while Luo Jinghua directly hooked his arm around Chen Zhengmin's neck and dragged him away. He did not want to arouse suspicion and cause unnecessary gossip, so he went along with the husband and wife. However, his footsteps were a little heavy, and it was difficult for him to raise a smile on his face. When it came to matters of the heart, it was useless to persuade them too much. They had to walk out on their own. Then the servants also retreated far away. After all, they were outside, so Li Hongyuan did not go so far as to touch her. He only tilted his head and looked at her, as if she would be satisfied as long as she looked at him like this. There was nothing to distract them. If they were stared at for too long, it would be easy to get embarrassed. It was better to hug intimately in private. Jingwan wanted to rudely slap him away, but if she did, she would probably be in trouble. He indulged her in private, and she could casually scratch and bite him in bed. However, she could not do it in public. If she offended him in the slightest, not to mention other things, she probably would not be able to pass the trial of noble consort Su. Li Hongyuan had always been good at reaching for a yard after taking an inch, and he was even better at taking advantage of people's weaknesses. Because he knew that she had scruples, he became more and more unscrupulous. He knew that it was not good to touch her, so he let her get up and sit on the other side of the table. Li Hongyuan turned around, supported his chin with one hand, and continued to look at her calmly. Probably because his back was completely facing the person he did not want to do. His eyes became more and more unscrupulous. They were gentle and affectionate, but there was also a naked desire. That gaze was as if he wanted to strip her naked. "Prince, can you not look at this subject's daughter like this?" Jingwan curled her lips, but only Li Hongyuan knew that she was gnashing her teeth. Actually, this husband would like to see how beautiful Wan Wan would be in such a place without an inch of clothing. Jingwan's face flushed red. She was embarrassed and angry. "Pervert," she said hatefully. Li Hongyuan curled his lips into a charming smile. "Wan Wan, only today did you know that your husband is a pervert? I thought that you should have known on the 17th of May. However, Wan Wan can't blame this husband. You can only blame Wan Wan for being too delicious. Moreover, this husband has not eaten enough until now. Alas, Wan Wan, why don't you feel sorry for your husband?" Jingwan's face was like a color palette. She thought that she had a glib tongue, but when it came to such a perverted topic, she could only fail miserably. "Shut up. Also, you are not a husband yet. A fiancé is also a husband." "Oh, is that so?" Jingwan put on a fake smile. "In that case, you are only the third husband." Jingwan spoke quickly and regretted it as soon as she finished speaking. She saw a certain someone's face become gloomy in an instant. The temperature seemed to have dropped several degrees, and she even felt that ice was about to fall. His face changed faster than flipping through a book. She did not forget why he went crazy last night. In the end, she was the one who suffered. This person would really kill someone without a word. It was definitely not a joke. It was really tiring to meet such a person who treated human life as grass. Ah Yuan. Jingwon softened her tone. Li Hongyuan smiled again, but it was a gloomy smile. Ah Yuan, I am still your 8th wife. We are even, right? Even. The ones before you don't care about me, but the ones before me don't give up on you. How can we be even? Last night you said that you might not be able to see them, and today. Hey, you can't be like this. How can today's situation be confused? Is it possible that in the future where they are I have to stay far away from them? Why? She did not do anything shameful. Indeed, you should not avoid them. They are not qualified, so you can only. You are not allowed to casually kill people. Jingwon said immediately. Won, who are you to say this? Even if Imperial Father says not allowed to me, it may not be useful. Jingwon pursed her lips and did not speak. Li Hongyuan's cold air was restrained a little. Sure enough, it was still too early for her to be unscrupulous towards him. Some words couldn't be said too much. If he wasn't careful, she would probably shrink back and become self-disciplined. Don't worry, I will not easily take their lives. In other words, he probably would not let them go easily. Was it because of possessiveness or jealousy? Or maybe it was both. Don't go too far. I only had one engagement with them, that's all. She really could not let go of this man and quarrel with him. Jingwon showed weakness. Li Hongyuan knew when to stop. It was not worth quarreling with outsiders. I estimate that we will return to the capital in 10 days at most. After that, it will be the Mid-Autumn Festival. Won, you will have your adulthood ceremony before the Spring Festival. After the Spring Festival we will get married. She didn't know if it was because his expression was too gentle, or if there was too much expectation in his eyes, but Jingwon subconsciously nodded. After she agreed, she was stunned for a moment, but then she smiled in relief. There was no rule that said that she had to wait until the 15th to have her adulthood ceremony. Her birthday was in February, and it would be the 15th of February next year. It was not a virtual year. There was no problem for her to have her adulthood ceremony a few months before and after. Although the wedding date was not set, it should be in the spring of next year. The summer was too hot, and this man probably would not let her delay it until autumn. Seeing Jingwon agree, Li Hongyuan's negative emotions all disappeared, and he showed an incredibly gentle smile. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653267. HTML Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 213. Such a group of people naturally attracted everyone's attention. With one look, it was clear who they were here for. When Li Hongyuan went out on a daily basis, he usually brought along his personal attendants and bodyguards. It was very rare for him to bring along his maidservants. Therefore, the number of people who had seen his maidservants could be counted on one's fingers. Now that such a group had appeared, their faces were beautiful, their figures were graceful, every one of them was a great beauty. Just based on their faces, they were definitely above Jingwon. Moreover, their bearing, to be honest, wasn't bad. In terms of literary skills, they might even be better than Jingwon. While many men were pretending to be elegant, carrying the demeanor of a gentleman as they sized up, many women were also looking. However, after looking at them, their gazes fell on the pavilion, smiling with unclear intentions. So what if Jin Qinwang respected his first wife? At most it was like this. There were so many enchanting beauties by his side, of all shapes and sizes. But then again, he was a noble descendant. To be able to respect his first wife was already not bad. Moreover, he was different from others, he didn't care about his reputation. With Laozi's support, Even if he favored his concubines and destroyed his wife, no one would care. The higher the husband's status, the more dignified and virtuous the first wife had to be. She couldn't be enchanting, couldn't have her own personality, and couldn't take the initiative to seduce her husband. Otherwise, she wouldn't have the demeanor of a first wife and would lose face for her man. However, when she endured and did all these, she would most likely be disliked by her man for being dull, inflexible, and emotionless. Things were so laughable. How many women didn't go through this? Don't blame anyone. Even the bit of envy and jealousy towards Sun Ijia had faded by a lot. Sure enough, she couldn't compare with those who were better than herself. Only when she thought of those who weren't as good as herself, could her heart be balanced. Si, Gu and Fu, the 4 personal maidservants, followed by the ordinary palace-attired maidservants, stood far away outside the pavilion, their voices slightly raised. "Greetings to master." Li Hongyuan's back was facing them, but Jingwan could clearly see them with her head tilted. In this pavilion, the one who could be addressed as Master Zhu, could it be her? He smiled and raised his chin at Li Hongyuan. His meaning was obvious. Li Hongyuan didn't move at all, as if he didn't know that there was a group of people outside. Most of the time, he really couldn't figure out what this person was thinking. Since he did not respond, the maidservants continued to maintain their greetings. After all, they were still carrying something in their hands. However, looking at these beauties, especially the 4 leaders, their movements were quite consistent and their expressions were unusually calm. They were definitely well trained. Jingwan even felt that they might have practiced martial arts. After all, they were somewhat similar to Baishao. This subject's daughter saw that they seemed to have brought a lot of delicious food. "Does your highness not plan to let this subject's daughter have a taste?" Having something to do, even if it was just eating and drinking, was better than just sitting there doing nothing. Although sitting like this was not particularly uncomfortable, this bastard's words were too perverted. If she did not distract herself a little, she really did not know when she would lose control and lose her self-control and directly go against her superior and beat him up. There were a lot of marks on her body, but there were also a lot of wounds on his body. When Li Hongyuan heard this, he raised his hand. The beauties obediently got up and walked gracefully into the pavilion. Once again they paid their respects, but this time the person they paid their respects to was the 3rd young miss of the Luo family. Jingwan slightly raised her eyebrows and calmly accepted it. These beauties' movements were nimble. A chessboard was placed on the table between the 2 of them. The white pieces were on the right side of Jingwan, while the black pieces were on the right side of Li Hongyuan. On both sides, there were juicy fruits that looked exceptionally delicious. There was also tea. Jingwan guessed that the tea should be just right for her to drink. Another short table was set up on the side, and more processed fruits were placed on it. The whole process was silent, and they even lowered their eyes, not even glancing at each other. These servants do not know Miss Luo's taste. If you like to eat something or if you don't like to eat something, just tell these servants. Perhaps Miss Luo is more accustomed to having her own people to serve her. It would be best to call Mama and Jejin. Qing Shi said softly. Her attitude was respectful, as if Jingwan was their master, and the real master Li Hongyuan was just an outsider. This scene, no matter how one looked at it, was a bit strange. Jingwan's expression did not change. She looked at the things that were within her reach. Not to mention the fruits, there were many varieties, and each one was only about 2 or 3 mouthfuls. Moreover, she was not very picky. The key point was that those snacks were only the size of a fingertip. Those were all things that she liked. They did not know her taste. Hee. They are all not bad. I've troubled you. Miss Luo is too much for these servants. These are all things that these servants should do. Even if they should do it, it would be after she married into Jin Qin Wang Fu. However, Jingwan did not say much. Li Hongyuan did not let them go out, so Jingwan naturally acquiesced to them staying. Does Wang Ye want to play a game of chess with this subject's daughter? However, this subject's level is very limited, probably only at the level of knowing. The emotions in Li Hongyuan's eyes were much lighter than when the 2 were together, It doesn't matter, it's just to pass the time. Even if you don't know, Ben Wang can teach you. Wan Wan has always been intelligent. She will not be stumped by insignificant black and white pieces. Jingwan paused. Wang Ye, this subject's daughter, always feels that, no matter how intelligent a person is, there should be a place where they are weak. And no matter how intelligent a person is, they may have an extremely high talent in a certain aspect. Li Hongyuan hooked his lips into a smile. Then what exactly does Wan Wan want to express to Ben Wang? Teske. He actually didn't directly say, Wan Wan, you're referring to your chess skills being crippled. It turned out that Jin Qinwang also had times of benevolence. This subject's daughter has not studied chess and does not know how high her talent is. If she is too stupid, Wang Ye should not dislike her too much. Whether it's good or bad, it's just a plaything. If Wan Wan likes it, then play a bit more. If you don't like it, then just put it aside. Everything was based on her preferences. Your bottomless indulgence, it's really not a problem. The game had already begun. When the number of pieces on the chessboard gradually increased, Li Hongyuan slowly explained to her. He was very meticulous and very patient. Every time he could place the pieces on those positions, he would accompany her to try it out step by step. Sometimes he would even go back a few steps and teach her another path. Jingwan learned seriously, and for the first time she felt that playing chess was so interesting. As time went by, many people came and went. Later, one after another, there were princes who had not yet been crowned as kings, as well as adult princes and their Wangfei who had finished their work. The age of these people was increasing. However, there wasn't a single person who didn't have eyes and came to the pavilion, including Prince Rui. Compared to coming to Li Hongyuan's place to be abused, it was naturally more important to get closer to those young talents. Therefore, even though they were not far apart, it was like two different worlds. Prince Rui looked at the pavilion. She actually wanted to invite Jingwan, but again and again, she couldn't get a chance to be alone with her. In fact, there were advantages to having more people, but Jingwan also didn't give her a chance to express her goodwill. Every time, she was always avoided by Jingwan. Then, not only her, even Prince Rui also found out that Li Hongyuan didn't want them to get close to Jingwan. Prince Rui was a bit unwilling to give up, but when he saw Li Hongyuan's face getting colder and colder, he could only give up. When it was almost time, they dispersed in twos and threes. The two people who didn't fit in also ended their chess game. Jingwan unknowingly ate a lot of food, but she didn't feel hungry at all. Then she clapped her hands and left, leaving the mess to Li Hongyuan to clean up. Jingwan and Sun Yijia got on the same carriage. Seeing that she didn't seem very happy. Sister-in-law, what's wrong? Your third brother's picture of a carp playing with a lotus was taken away by Prince Rui. That painting, I like it very much. Jingwan was silent. The other person had a high position and was also shameless. If he wanted to leave, there was no way, but how about I ask Prince Jin to get it back? In any case, that scoundrel was even more shameless. Whatever he wanted, there was probably nothing that he couldn't get. Sun Yijia stared blankly. Looking at Jingwan again, she already had a bit of ridicule. There's no need for that, but you and Prince Jin. Unfinished words couldn't be spoken, could only be understood. Jingwan didn't mind. It was just a game of chess, nothing shameful. Since it was a literary gathering, it naturally couldn't just revolve around one or two people. Jingwan didn't know, but Sun Yijia had seen many masterpieces of poetry. There were also some calligraphy and paintings that weren't lacking in top quality. Except for a few people who harbored such thoughts, most of the others were very satisfied. In fact, Sun Yijia was also very satisfied. Just like before they came to avoid the summer heat, Jingwan had said, "Show off one's husband." Today she really did, intentionally or unintentionally, fiercely show off. It wasn't that she did anything, but Luo Jinghua unconsciously did a lot. Not to mention that he always carefully protected her. Even when he was painting, he would occasionally glance at her, as if he could only feel at ease when he saw her sitting steadily by his side. That posture wasn't fake. Moreover, even if someone deliberately faked it, they wouldn't be able to reach his level. Don't know how many married and unmarried women were jealous to death. Jingwan's misery couldn't heal the hurt in their hearts. That's right, I didn't see Ruan Fengfei today. It is said that she has already been sent to Prince Zhongfu. Jingwan's reaction was flat. In fact, she knew some things about Ruan Fengfei. It was quite miserable, but that was enough. In the future it would have nothing to do with her. On the 5th day, they received the imperial decree to return to the capital. Every family began to pack up and set off 2 days later. On the way back it was very peaceful. Perhaps they didn't want to stay any longer and cause more trouble. The journey was also a lot faster. Compared to when they came, they used 1 day less to reach the capital. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653269. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, no registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bikugo mobile reading website. Bicken. Chapter 214. When the emperor returned to the capital, the officials naturally lined the road to greet him. Emperor Luqingdi was kind. He knew that the journey was tough, so he dispersed when it was about time. At the same time, the officials who had nothing important to do could go to the court in advance. In this way, the 2 heads of the Luo family returned. Except for those who couldn't go out, such as Luo Rongping, who was paralyzed in bed, and little Wang, who was in confinement, everyone else waited at the door. When they saw the 2 elders, Luo Ronguen led them to kneel and greet them back. Luo Peishan, on the other hand, was as elegant as ever, with a hint of indifference and a hint of calmness in his dignified manner. Most of the time he had such a face, so it was not strange to see him like this. As for old Madame Luo, she was also wise and calm. She did not shed tears when she saw her son and grandson after 2 months of separation. One must know that when she brought Jingwan to the capital, she did not show much emotion even after a few years of not seeing her. Everyone was also used to the 2 elders only treating Jingwan as a treasure. They were all in the state of grass. Now no one in the Luo family really cared about this. More or less, they hid it in their hearts and didn't show any clues. They wouldn't do anything they shouldn't do. It was purely looking for death. In addition, they weren't mistreated by the Luo family. It was unnecessary and not worth it. The 3 girls who were married were the best witnesses. Needless to say, the eldest girl had a stable position in her husband's family and was flattered more and more. Jingwan didn't shortchange her of the benefits that the women of the Luo family should have. Naturally, she also knew a lot of things from her mother. How could she have evil thoughts? As for the second girl, although she was a concubine's daughter, she was also considered to have married into a lower family. She was backed by the big tree of the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs and didn't have a bad relationship with her family. Luo Peishan also gave her husband's family a certain amount of support. Even if she didn't have children for a few years, her back was straight and upright. As for the 4th girl, she was a troublemaker all day long. Many people didn't like her. Now she was a despised concubine. Even if she was in the prince's mansion, no one in the Luo family knew that she was pregnant. Even if they knew, no one cared. Her own mother even abandoned her. She fell to this point. The biggest factor was her own status. The worst relationship with Jingwan was one disaster after another. After entering the gate, Luo Peishan waved his hand to disperse everyone and let them do what they should do. Jingwan was a little dispirited now. She pushed her sister-in-law, who was more energetic than her, out to deal with her mother. Anyway, the child in her belly was Madame Zhang's grandchild. When they left, Madame Zhang didn't know. Later, she found out from the letter and probably had been longing for it for a long time. Now she could see the truth and be happy. Begonia House was a place that she was already familiar with. Even if she came back with Jingwan, her personal maids went back first. With the help of the little maids, everything was prepared. After bathing and changing clothes, Jingwon ate a little something to fill her stomach. Then she went to sleep comfortably. When she woke up, she would probably be revived with full health. After waking up, Jingwon was indeed revived with full health. However, her mood was actually not so good. After waking up in their own territory, they saw a weak and soft girl with timid eyes who seemed to be frightened by the slightest movement. You just looked at her and she looked like she was about to cry. There was probably no creature in the world more annoying than this. Cousin. She looked at you with watery eyes. Which family did this strange relative come out of? Jingwon sat down and looked at the maid beside her. What's going on? Miss, this cousin is the child of your aunt's family. They just came to the capital and haven't settled down yet. For the time being they are guests in the Fu. Jingzhu replied. When Jingwon was resting, the maids naturally had to find out what had happened during her absence. Jingwon had only seen the so-called aunt once when she was young. However, it left a deep impression on her because Jingwon lowered her head and took a sip of tea. She hadn't seen this cousin even once. She didn't know that she was a real little white flower with a black heart. I should be the one to see aunt and cousin. No. The little white flower's face was red and she looked like she was about to cry. I'm a little tired now. I'll go see aunt later. Cousin, you can go back first. Jingwon directly asked her to leave. The little white flower was even more anxious. Cousin. She saw the coldness on Jingwon's face and knew what was good for her. Then I'll go back first. When she turned around, the golden beads slid down her palm-sized face. Jingwon's face was cold. People like her only had 2 words left in her heart. Damn it. If she walked out looking like this, people would most likely think that she was severely bullied by Jingwon. If she wasn't black-hearted, then she was naturally black-hearted. It would be strange if people liked this kind of person. And people who liked this kind of person must have holes in their brains. Every hole was filled with water. Jingwon wasn't the only one who was black-hearted. Everyone around her was black-hearted. Wasn't that clearly tarnishing the girl's reputation? This was intolerable. Jingwon waved her hand. This kind of person will only cry harder if you do anything to her. Don't worry about it. Those who were fooled by this kind of person were pure idiots. There was no need to argue with an idiot. Who came to aunt's house? Just this girl, your aunt, uncle and their child. Oh right, there's also your aunt's younger sister-in-law. That person's age is similar to this girl. Qingzhu said. Similar to her niece's age. Then she must have had a daughter at an old age. She just didn't know if she was born from a second wife like Ruan Fengfei or an old clam giving birth to a pearl. It was unlikely that she was a concubine's daughter. Her uncle was the eldest son. No matter how much his father doted on a concubine's younger sister, there was no reason for him to keep her by his side. Jingwon saw Qingzhu's strange expression. Why? Is there something wrong? Miss, your aunt's younger sister-in-law is short-sighted. I heard that she has only been in the Luo family for a few days, but she has already taken away a lot of things from Madam. Moreover, as soon as we entered the courtyard, she went to third young master's courtyard. Jingwon sneered. In the Luo family, who else could it be but her sister-in-law? She had already inquired about it. However, if it was her sister-in-law who could take things away from her mother so easily, it wouldn't be so easy for her sister-in-law. Alright, there's one more thing. Hong Lian has also become a bed warmer. Hearing this, Jingwon's face turned stern and she directly smashed the cup. This was the first time that Jingwon had smashed something since she was born. It could be seen that she was really angry. Hong Lian was one of the handmaidens that Duchess Ding had prepared for her third brother. Together with Lu Yi, she had asked her to be a servant girl to burn the fire and clean the courtyard. Now, after only 2 months, she had actually climbed into her father's bed. She was indeed too benevolent. Help me dress up. Jingwon changed her clothes and dressed up meticulously. That's right, she was preparing to step on someone. When she went to Luo Mei residence, Jingwon was still outside the door. The servant girl guarding the door was about to go in and report, but she stopped her. "Younger sister, I'm not criticizing you, but our family's servant girl Lien was born delicate and weak. How could my niece have the heart to bully her? In terms of seniority, Lien is her older cousin. Moreover, in the future they will be living under the same roof. She's like this, like this." She had been wiping her tears as she spoke, but now she was sobbing uncontrollably. "Mother, younger cousin didn't." A certain girl called Lien also sobbed weakly. Jingwon didn't feel anything about this scene, but the words "living under the same roof" spun on the tip of her tongue. "Older sister Lien grew up in the palm of my hand. In my eyes she's just like my own daughter. How can she be Jingbua's concubine?" Madame Zhang said weakly with a troubled expression. "Our Lien brings fortune to her husband and family. She can marry into any family. Older sister, don't you want to keep the goodies within the family? I also know that you treat her as your own daughter, so you're assured to marry her to Jingbua. Speaking of which, Jingbua is just a virgin now. Lien has indeed suffered. Since younger sister also thinks so, why don't you promote Lien to a second wife? Although her status is a little lower, younger sister and Jingbua definitely won't be lacking in anything." Madame Zhang was speechless. She looked at her daughter-in-law who was sitting quietly and felt very sorry for her. However, she really wasn't good at facing this kind of situation. Didn't she already send someone to call Jingbua? Why wasn't he here yet? "Younger sister, why are you standing at the door and not going in?" Jingwon turned around. Her father and brother were together. Her gaze swept over them indifferently. "Father, third brother, I was just about to go in. It's good that you're here. Everything could be resolved at the same time." Luo Rongyan felt that his daughter's gaze was a little frightening. However, when he thought about how he had slept with her maidservant in her courtyard, his old face turned slightly red. He clearly knew that she hated concubines the most, but this time he actually touched her head. It seemed that any reaction from her was not surprising. He subconsciously revealed a fawning smile. His appearance was not bad. He had a clear temperament, and the lethality of his smile was not small. Unfortunately, Jingwon was indifferent. Now she even had a bad impression of her father. She even stepped into the room ahead of them. She clearly saw her mother breathe a sigh of relief. The pair of mother and daughter with red eyes had a bit of shyness on their faces. There was also a girl sitting at the side peacefully stroking her belly. When she saw Jingwon come in, she raised her head and chuckled. There was also a girl whose eyes were restless and itching to stick to her body. Jingwon just stood there. She didn't even greet them. Her gaze fell on a maidservant with a woman's hair in a bun. Her eyes were like small hooks, but at this moment, there was a bit of fear in them. "Servants, drag this lowly maidservant out and beat her 50 times. If she dies, it will naturally be over. If she doesn't die, she will be sold as a guilty slave." It was the first time Jingwon gave such a command that could take someone's life. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653271. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com mobile edition reading website. Bicken. Chapter 215. But it was a pity that Jingwon's words were still very effective even in Falling Plum House. Seeing the determination in Jingwon's eyes that left no room for negotiation, Hong Lian also knew that begging her was useless. She rolled and crawled to Luo Rongyan's feet. "Second master, save this servant. Miss wants to beat this servant to death. In any case, this servant is your person. Mrs. Completely not putting you in her eyes, second master, second master. She dared to drive a wedge between them even at the brink of death, and did it so brazenly. But did he care? Course not. Sun Yijia seemed to have just discovered Hong Lian's existence and seemed to have finally recognized her. Even if someone forced her husband to be a concubine, she would not be affected at all because she knew what the final result would be. But now she was strangely angry. Her face was frosty. She was not only targeting Hong Lian, but also her mother. What kind of mentality did she have at that time to choose such a person for her? Even under normal circumstances, as long as it was for her daughter's good, she would never choose such a person, right? Sun Yijia took a breath and calmed down her emotions. That person, she should not think about it. Compared to her fifth brother, she was already much luckier. Not only because she married the person she liked and the entire in-laws treated her very well, and would continue to be good. Because she was a married daughter, she could not see her and not face her. No one would say that she was unfilial, but her fifth brother could not. Sun Yijia lowered her eyes again. The contracts of the two servant girls were given to Wan Mimi and let Wan Mimi handle it. A girl dealing with her father's bed warmer, if word got out, her reputation would be greatly affected. Moreover, there were outsiders present. But so what? For an unmarried girl, the most important thing was to have a good husband's family. Wan Mimi did not have this concern. Jin Qin Wang, that person, would support Wan Mimi to the end. Sun Yijia had this intuition. Luo Rongyan was now very embarrassed. With his upbringing, he could not kick away the woman hugging his leg. Wan. Jingwan revealed a cold smile. Why? Does father feel sorry for her and want to protect her? Luo Rongyan looked at Jingwan in silence. His relationship with his daughter was getting worse and worse. That feeling was really. Even though he knew where the problem was, he still wanted to work hard to change it. He was now working hard at the Ministry of Revenue. He had not been to his concubine's room, but an accident like Red Lotus appeared out of nowhere. He originally thought that since she was a member of his daughter's courtyard and his wife was so soft-hearted, he wanted to wait for his daughter to come back and deal with it. His wife could be said to be obedient to his daughter. But now it seemed that he should have dealt with it earlier. Wan, you're thinking too much. What are you waiting for? Take him away. Red Lotus was forcibly dragged away by the two old maids who did rough work. Without this protective umbrella, Red Lotus seemed to be grasping at the last life-saving straw, which was almost at the level of a true saint, Madame Zhang. Madam, save me. This servant will serve you like an ox or a horse. Madame Zhang's eyes flashed, but when her daughter looked over, Madame Zhang moved her lips and did not say a word. Her daughter was so angry because she wanted to protect her. If she stood on the opposite side of her, wouldn't she not know what was good for her? Moreover, she always felt that if she spoke now, her daughter would probably ignore her in the future. She knew that she was not a qualified mother and could not help her child, so she could only strive to not be a burden. You probably won't be able to find the person who will save you. Jingwan looked at Red Lotus, who was clinging to the door frame, and said coldly. Jingwan was not interested in finding out what methods she had used to climb into the bed. It was nothing more than that. She did not suspect that her father had taken the initiative to do it. He would not lay his hands on the people around his children. He still had this bit of moral integrity. Hong Lian's fear was mixed with overwhelming hatred. She cursed out loud, saying things like hypocrites, viciousness, thieves, prostitutes, and so on. Then she was gagged and beaten viciously in the courtyard outside. Jingwan watched the whole process and saw Red Lotus's vicious eyes. She also saw the pain in Red Lotus's face during the beating. Although her mouth was gagged, anyone could feel that Red Lotus only had one breath left in her. Whether she could survive was not within Jingwan's range of concern. After dealing with Red Lotus, Jingwan's gaze fell on her aunt and the others. They seemed to be frightened. In the summer palace in Chengda, a girl from Marquis Chongping's estate wanted to be third brother's concubine. I was not willing. That girl lost half her life and probably will not be able to get married for the rest of her life. Her father, Marquis Chongping, also gave his title to someone else. Jingwan said calmly. Although what she said was the truth, the meaning completely changed. She became the main culprit. If you are willing to lower yourself to become a concubine, then don't blame others for looking down on you. Outsiders aside, I don't care about people from other branches of the family. Let's talk about the second branch of the Luo family. Who dares to send a girl here to be a concubine? Let's sever the relationship first, then sign the slave contract. The first day that person enters, the next day, I will return him a corpse. You child, you child. Madame Gu pointed at Jingwan with trembling fingers. But in the face of Jingwan's indifference, she knew that her previous methods would not work. So, she pointed the finger at Madame Gu. As she spoke, she wiped away her tears. Younger sister, how can you teach such a good girl to be like this? A girl's 3 obediences and 4 virtues. Aunt, don't say such things. I was raised by grandmother. She is very satisfied with me. Are you questioning my grandmother? This is the Luo family. The head of the family is the minister of the Ministry of Official Personnel Affairs. Grandmother is not in charge of the family affairs, but no one dares to disobey her. You are just a relative of the Luo family. She is unhappy and drives you out. Is it you or her who is ashamed? Madame Gu's face turned pale. She did not dare to continue scolding her on this point. Also, don't cry. No one here can be appeased by tears and weakness. My father is not either. You don't know how ugly you are like this. You. Madame Gu became more and more agitated as if she had been touched. You resent my mother for robbing you of your marriage. It has been almost 20 years, but you still can't forget my father. Tell me what will happen to you if uncle knows. Jingwan smiled, but her eyes were cold. She continued to scold her. The people in the room were very surprised. They looked at Madame Gu in disbelief. However, Luo Rongyan's expression was a little subtle. You are a girl. How can you make up such a story? You are really, Madame Gu said harshly. Her face became more and more pale. She seemed to have forgotten to continue crying. I am sorry. When you came to Qian Mansion and stopped my father to talk about your feelings, I happened to hear it clearly and saw it clearly. Do you want to know what I saw? Shut up. Because of this, even if I have only seen you once, I have a deep impression of you. Fortunately, my father is a gentleman. Otherwise, Jingwan's expression became indifferent, but it was more uncomfortable than direct ridicule. Everyone looked at Madame Gu as if they were looking at a dirty thing. It made her want to tear Jingwan apart. Sharp-tongued, disrespectful to elders, mean and insidious. Well, when we are out of the Luo family, you can spread whatever you want. If I frown, I will not be surnamed Luo. And I will give you one last advice. Don't covet what you shouldn't covet. Know your place. The Luo family will lend you a courtyard to live in. Otherwise, get out of here as soon as possible. Jingwan crudely peeled off the skin on her face and left her some leeway. As a result, some people were like cockroaches, jumping around and disgusting. When faced with such a weirdo, it was best to make her not dare to do anything. Madame Gu looked like she was about to faint. Her eyes flickered as she glanced at Luo Rongyan. It seemed that she still hoped that he would speak up for her and teach this bastard who humiliated her a lesson. Unfortunately, Luo Rongyan's attention was on Jingwan at this moment. In fact, he was not the least bit proud of being remembered by his aunt. Instead, he felt disgusted. If he could avoid it, he would avoid it as much as possible. However, there was someone who was not sensible and went to the Falling Plum House all day long. She was picky. She said this kind of food was not delicious, but he saw her eat it all. She said this kind of food was not good, but her eyes were engraved with greed. She could not wait to take everything for herself. What's more, she said that her sister did not do well and did not do anything right. If it were her, she would do so and so. She almost regarded herself as the hostess of the Falling Plum House. The most disgusting thing was that she pretended to be shy and weak in front of him and cried at the slightest thing. And the daughter she taught. Madame Gu looked at her sister blankly. She was probably shocked and could not come back to her senses for a long time. Mother. Ah. Wan, are you talking to me? Madame Gu came back to her senses and immediately put her sister and whatever aside. She felt that her daughter was in a bad mood today and had a bad temper, so she was a little cautious. In the future, if you meet people like Red Lotus again, directly kill them. Jingwan was unprecedentedly cold at this moment. How can that be? That's a human life. That's the person who stole your husband. Jingwan interrupted her expressionlessly. But, Madame Gu fiddled with the handkerchief in her hand and lowered her head. Her eyes were slightly red. Shouldn't a woman regard her husband as her sky and be virtuous and virtuous? According to what you said, there should be a sentence of, to help the husband and teach the children. Since you only do half of it and only think about him and throw the children aside, why can't you be more ruthless and thorough? Madame Gu was very helpless in the face of Jingwan's question. Things were completely out of her control. She was a little absent-minded and seemed to be muttering to herself. Your father cares about me. Other people are just. Because I have you in my heart, I don't care about him having other people. Mother, do you know that I care about you the most and that I only have you in my heart and that other people are just playthings? That's the most disgusting thing. It's not even as good as a husband and wife who appear to be united but are actually divided. In fact, sometimes I really wonder if you really love Father with all your heart. If you really love him, then that lowly servant climbed into his bed and you can actually stay by his side like nothing happened. Don't you feel uncomfortable? He is surrounded by beautiful concubines and you can be virtuous and magnanimous to take care of them. If you don't care, then you won't be jealous and be virtuous. Sometimes Jing-won really felt that her mother was a weirdo among weirdos. She really wanted to pry open her head and see what she was thinking. Sometimes it really made people's worldview shatter. Madame Gu looked at Jingwon in a daze. She didn't know why her daughter was so angry today. Wan, it's wrong for you to think like that. It's wrong, especially when your future husband is a Qinwang. Enough, don't use your methods to lecture me. You haven't taught me anything since I was young, so please continue to maintain it now. Since you are willing to be like this, why should I meddle in other people's business? Jingwan sneered. If you feel that I'm wrong, then you firmly believe that you are right. Then continue to be. Bitch. In the end, she didn't say the last word. In the past, she felt that her mother's personality was weak and that she was a saint. She also thought that her mother's attitude towards the concubines was just that she had been brainwashed by the current dogma. These were all left to her. She wasn't a real child and didn't need her mother's care. But her mother's attitude towards Hong Lian made Jingwan unable to control her emotions and directly exploded. Jingwan glanced at the other three people. What was the big deal about a servant who climbed into the bed? Another one was a married woman who was coveting her husband, and she was even his sister. The other party even had the idea of giving her daughter to her son as a concubine. She clearly wanted to climb up the social ladder, yet she still belittled her son. She even said that it was for her own good. How could she face such a person calmly and not beat her up immediately? Her mother was indeed a deity that she couldn't understand. She could even hesitate to beat someone who might not appear again in the future. Then, she probably wouldn't do something like kicking her biological sister out of the house. Aunt, I hate this kind of person the most when you act pitiful and aggrieved. If you want to stay in the Luo family, stop acting like a ghost or never appear in front of me. Other things aside, if I want to kick you out, it's just a matter of a word. Jingwan didn't want to stay here any longer. She took one last look at Madame Zhang and then looked away. If you want to live like this, that's your own business. Don't harm my brother and sister-in-law. If you are soft-hearted and agree to be a concubine, don't blame me for falling out with you and not recognizing you as my mother. Sister-in-law, I have something to discuss with grandmother. Will you come with me? Sunny Jia looked at Jingwan with some worry, but didn't say anything. She stood up. Okay. Mother, daughter-in-law will take her leave now. She turned around and bowed to Luo Rongyan. It was the first time that Jingwan did such a rude thing. She directly walked around her father and left. Luo Jingbua didn't know about the matter of concubines, but he could roughly guess. Wasn't this a trap? He had to leave this place quickly. He attentively supported Sun Yijia. Sun will also take his leave. The husband and wife hurriedly followed out. Luo Rongyan stood there in a daze. His daughter had expected better from his wife, but she seemed to have completely ignored him. He always knew that his daughter didn't like concubines. He used to think that it was because of her mother, but later he knew that was only part of the reason. She hated these things from the bottom of her heart. He used to think that the relationship between father and daughter was good. After all, other people couldn't affect their blood relationship. It turned out that was not the case. Now it had turned into disgust. He always thought that his wife and concubines were harmonious, and he didn't have many children, not to mention the younger ones. His eldest son and eldest daughter were extremely outstanding. He lived a carefree life, but he could get things that others couldn't even get. He was proud of himself and even showed off to some friends. But now it seemed that he was actually ridiculous, a failure and incompetent. Perhaps he was the kind of person that his daughter despised the most. Luo Rongyan came back to his senses and saw his wife crying silently. He knew that his daughter's ruthless words had hurt her. He knew that she loved him. There was no doubt about it. She didn't show much jealousy before, so he took it for granted. Thinking about his daughter's words, he suddenly felt that it was very abnormal. "Aunt, please leave. In the future. We are relatives. Don't do unnecessary things to wear away our feelings. In the Luo family, mother loves Wan the most. If you really make her unhappy, mother will stand up for you without saying a word. How much do you think you are in my mother's eyes? Moreover, father respects mother. Mother has a great influence on father. Similarly, Wan is father's favorite grandson. As long as one was not stupid, who would not understand the meaning of these words? It was calmly stating a fact, but also a warning and a threat. She and her husband had brought their child and a sister-in-law to the capital. Could it be that they had traveled thousands of miles just to come here and have fun? Course not. When the Zhang family and Luo Peishan formed a marriage alliance, Father Zhang and Luo Peishan were on equal footing. However, Father Zhang was only a fourth-rank official at the time of his death. His descendants were also mediocre. Luo Peishan was a first-rank official at the moment of his death. He was the head of the 6 ministries, the Minister of Personnel Affairs. He was extremely prominent. She should have a share of such wealth and honor. However, she should have been the one to discuss the marriage, but her sister took it away from her. How could he not be angry? You! Her voice was choked with sobs, and her eyes were full of pain. Aunt, don't be so pretentious. I chose the marriage myself. Luo Rongyan said coldly. Wan hates you. Hate you too. You're so pretentious, and you're already so old. Luo Rongyan was not a man who had tender feelings for the fairer sex. If she cried too much, he would feel unlucky. If you were stabbed by an ordinary person, you would probably get hurt and bleed. However, if you were stabbed by someone you cared about or even adored, it would be a direct attack to your heart. It would be so painful that you would wish you were dead. Sun Yijia held Jingwan's arm and walked quietly in front. Luo Jingbua followed behind. They knew that Jingwan was in a bad mood. Thinking about it, it was indeed quite infuriating. When they were about to reach the main courtyard, Sun Yijia finally patted her hand and said, Sister Wan, don't worry. Mother still has me. Moreover, I'm only a daughter-in-law. Although I have my concerns, some things are easier to handle. Jingwan smiled. Thank you, sister-in-law. She was her mother after all. She had stayed in her mother's womb before and knew the pain she went through during childbirth. Speaking of which, they only had different values in life. There was no other conflict. Although her mother was not a qualified mother, she still loved her child. She should not force her own thoughts on others. She did not listen to her mother's words. Naturally, her mother did not need to accept her thoughts. Everyone had their own way of living. Along the way, Jingwan had thought about it very clearly. If she could not bear it, the best way was to stay away. Out of sight, out of mind. In the future it would probably be like this. When Jingwan and the others arrived at the main courtyard, Madame Luo had also taken a nap and had just woken up. "Why are you here now?" Then she realized that something was wrong with Jingwan. Others might not be able to tell, but she knew Jingwan too well. "What's the matter?" Sun Yijia, on the other hand, did not hesitate to complain. Madame Luo had already completely ignored her daughter-in-law. "Why do you care about her? Just do what your daughter should do. As for the rest, whether it's pain or happiness, it's her own business. As the saying goes, people with different principles cannot make plans together. Grandmother, I'm fine. This is the last time." Jingwan smiled and said, "By the way, grandmother, I'm going to have my coming-of-age ceremony after the Mid-Autumn Festival. There are many related matters that I'll have to trouble grandmother with." "You're going to have your coming-of-age ceremony after the Mid-Autumn Festival?" Madame Luo looked at Jingwan. "I thought you would have to wait until next spring, but it doesn't matter if it's a little earlier. This is a big day. Grandmother will make it grand for you." Jingwan felt as if she had been seen through by her grandmother, and her face turned slightly red. "Thank you, grandmother. As long as grandmother is alive, there's nothing else to think about other than you." Jingwan's eyes were slightly red, but she smiled and said, "Grandmother, if grandfather heard this, wouldn't he be jealous?" "Let him be." Madame Luo waved her hand nonchalantly, as if in her eyes, that old man was really worthless. The three of them spent time at Madame Luo's place until it was time for dinner. The Gu family, who were staying as guests in the Luo family, also formally kowtowed to the two elders with the highest status. Among the younger generation of the Gu family, besides Gu Lianer, there was also a girl and 3 boys. Jingwan was not interested in whether they were legitimate or not. It had nothing to do with her. As long as they didn't provoke her, they would naturally live in peace. She had made it so obvious that she believed that no one would be stupid enough to annoy her. She just didn't know if this uncle already knew what she said. At that time, he had a younger sister by his side. As a younger sister, if she knew that her sister-in-law was thinking about another man, she would definitely be very angry. At that time, this girl didn't have any reaction. She was such a shallow person. Therefore, if she didn't tell her biological brother, it was more likely that he would use this as leverage to blackmail her sister-in-law for more benefits. Of course, it didn't rule out the possibility that she would tell the truth. If this man wanted to use the Luo family, he would naturally endure it. After all, she was just thinking about him in her heart and didn't make him wear a green hat. The 2 elders gave them greeting gifts respectively. However, Madame Luo was quite cold to Mrs. Gu and Mrs. Zhang. Mrs. Gu and Mrs. Zhang's expression was a little stiff. Now, they really didn't dare to go to Jingwan's side. If they were really kicked out, they wouldn't be able to establish a foothold in the capital. It hadn't been long since they came to the capital. It was so prosperous and extravagant. How could she bear to leave? Dinner was in the main courtyard. The women's table was separated. After dinner, they were not in a hurry to leave. They moved to the side hall and the servants prepared tea. Madame Luo first asked about little Mrs. Wang and the child. When Mrs. Wang asked if she wanted to take the child over for her to see, Madame Luo said that she would go to see the child tomorrow. The child was still young. It would be easy to scare the child if she carried him here and there. Then she casually asked about other things in the family. Mrs. Wang had been in charge of the household for many years. Naturally, there wouldn't be any mistakes in these aspects. But Mrs. Luo didn't ask much, so Mrs. Wang roughly told her everything. All the things for the Mid-Autumn Festival were ready. Madame Luo nodded and said, "Wan's adulthood ceremony will be held after the Mid-Autumn Festival. My eldest daughter-in-law, please take care of it. Mrs. Wang readily agreed and said that she would do it well. She said with a smile, "At that time, the guest of honor will definitely be Great Elder Princess. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653274. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com Mobile Edition website. Bicken. Chapter 216. Great Elder Princess was Jingwan's foster mother. Her status was very noble and she was talented. Naturally, she was the best candidate for Jingwan's hairpin ceremony. If someone else was chosen instead of her, Great Elder Princess would probably be unhappy, so there was no need to worry that she would disagree. Madame Luo nodded in agreement and looked sideways at Jingwan, who was sitting beside her. Remember to pay respects to Great Elder Princess. Jingwan nodded with a smile and said, I'll pay respects to my foster mother when the date is chosen. Although she would officially send her resignation 3 days before the hairpin ceremony, it was necessary to inform her in advance. The secretary and the counselor can make the decision by 1-1. Jingwan was very clear about the agenda of the hairpin ceremony. She had seen a lot of it when she was in Qi-an Mansion and also participated in it as a counselor. Grandma, will the secretary choose 1 or 3 people? Madame Luo laughed and said, How can Wan ask such a silly question? Jingwan silently closed her mouth. She was indeed silly. If one's status was not high enough, it would be pretentious. But if one's status was high enough, it was natural for him to do it. If he didn't do it, others would think that he was unworthy and looked down upon. Jingwan was now in the state of frugality. However, it was quite difficult to choose. It was not that there were few people. On the contrary, among the many noble ladies in the capital city, Jingwan was definitely the first one. Many people would rush to attend her hairpin ceremony as the main person. After all, there would be many important guests present. It would be of great benefit if they could show their faces and be known by more nobles. The princesses of Qi Yuan were still worried about marriage. Their husbands were basically invisible. If they were favored, they would be fine. If they were not, they would probably disappear in a corner after marriage. However, it would be different if they had a good friend with a powerful background. Even if they were married, they could show their existence from time to time. Among other things, if they could get Great Elder Princess's approval, they would definitely feel much better. Therefore, if Jingwan wanted to be extravagant, she could easily set up a group of princesses. Of course, Jingwan would not do such a thing. She was not familiar with those princesses. Praises were usually sisters or good friends and were usually unmarried. Jingwan already had an idea of who to choose. Zhou Shuang and Yuan Chao Chao would choose one. As for Si, Jingwan did not know about other places, but in Qi Yuan, they would usually choose a young married woman who had not been married for long. In reality, this should be chosen by Jingwan's mother, Zhangshi, or else old Madame Luo could also choose. At this time, Mrs. Zhang's heart was actually very sad. Her daughter was celebrating such an important day, but she had nothing to do. She also knew that she didn't have much ability, and if she wasn't careful, things might go wrong. However, she didn't receive any news about this matter before. Originally, she should have been the first to know, but she made her daughter sad. Not only could she not help her, but she also wanted her to protect her. In this way, even if she was ignored, she couldn't blame her for anything. Mrs. Zhang felt that something was wrong with the corners of her eyes, so she hurriedly touched her temples to cover it up. She put on a smile. At this time she couldn't cry. It was okay that she couldn't help her daughter, but she couldn't embarrass her and be a hindrance. Coming of age was indeed very important for a girl. Other people also joined in, and the atmosphere was quite lively. However, several people of the Gu family had a strange light in their eyes. When they were calculating something, they couldn't help but feel scared. Although they had been in the Luo family for a few days and inquired about some things, they didn't know that the third miss was so amazing. Not only was she doted on by the two elders of the Luo family, but she even had the foster mother of Great Elder Princess and was the future princess. They didn't even dare to imagine that she was so glorious and illustrious. Before they came to the capital city, the most senior official's wife they could meet was just a fourth-level official. At that time, Mrs. Zhang showed off a lot with the excuse that her sister's father-in-law was a first-level official. Because of this, she squeezed into the circle that she couldn't enter before, and others still flattered her. If her father-in-law was a first-level official, in fact, she would be more powerful than before. She stopped breathing for a moment, and her heart seemed to be gnawed by thousands of insects. She didn't know whether it was intentional or not, but she met Jingwan's eyes. Jingwan also said that the girl of the Lord Protector's manner was just. If you offended her, you probably wouldn't have a good end. Her heart couldn't stop beating wildly. Fortunately, there was still the relationship of relatives. But with such a confusing identity, as long as she leaked something through her fingers, it would be enough. After about an hour they dispersed. As for the other side, Luo Shangshu had left for more than 2 months, so he naturally had a lot to talk with his descendants. Originally, they had nothing to do with the children under the age of 16, but this time, all the children who had been enlightened stayed. It could be seen that Luo Shangshu really didn't mean to let them go at all. 2 days later, the coming-of-age ceremony was held. Jingwan didn't know that they were so serious just to choose the date of the coming-of-age ceremony. But they were busy for her sake, so Jingwan was grateful. It should be known that many unfavored girls had their coming-of-age ceremony in a hurry, and even some people didn't have such a solemn ceremony at all. For girls at present, the coming-of-age ceremony played an important role in motivating and encouraging them. Therefore, whether the family cared about it or not, it would have an immeasurable impact on them. The final date was September 6th, which was suitable for everything. The next day, Jingwan visited Great Elder Princess's manor and told her at once, which was also a show of respect to Great Elder Princess. For Jingwan, she could visit Great Elder Princess's mansion at any time, and there was no need to pay a formal visit. Every time Jingwan visited, Jingwan was the happiest one. As they got along for a long time, Jingwan liked this little girl more and more. "What are you here for today?" Great Elder Princess asked with a smile, drinking the flower tea sent by Jingwan. "What are you talking about, mother? Can't I come for no reason?" "I don't know. I just met you a day or two before I left the summer palace of Qingda. If there is nothing, you won't come so soon." Great Elder Princess was not complaining, nor did she blame Jingwan. Great Elder Princess's manor was not involved in the affairs of the imperial court, but Luo Peishan had real power. Even though Jingwan was Great Elder Princess's adopted daughter, she couldn't visit often because of this relationship. Otherwise, it would definitely arouse suspicion, which was not good for both families. "Well, my family is going to hold the coming-of-age ceremony for me on September 6th, and we want to invite you to be the guest of honor. I wonder if you—" Before Jingwan finished her words, Great Elder Princess waved her hand to interrupt her. "You are going to hold the coming-of-age ceremony, so of course I will be the guest of honor. Do you want to invite someone else?" Great Elder Princess looked at Jingwan as if she would drive her out if she had such an idea. "Of course I thought of you first. Didn't I set the date yesterday and come today?" Great Elder Princess gave her a look of, "You know what you are doing." She didn't ask her how she could hold the coming-of-age ceremony in advance. Jingwan spent more than half a day in Great Elder Princess's manor. When she left, she agreed to worship the moon with Wangzhu Yuyao on the Mid-Autumn Festival. In the afternoon, Jingwan went to the Yuan family. They hadn't seen each other for more than 2 months. Yuan Xiaoqiao pounced on Jingwan like a crazy girl and hugged her directly. She really didn't have any manners at all. However, it didn't matter since they were at home. No one would criticize her. but it was enough to show that her legs and feet were completely healed without any sequelae. Jingwan had no choice but to let go of her and go to pay respects to her aunt and Madame Dowager of the Yuan family. No matter what the reason was, the old madam was always kind and amiable towards Jingwan and seemed to like her a lot. Then she went to Yuan Chaoqiao's courtyard. When she learned that Jingwan was going to hold the coming-of-age ceremony and needed a compliment, she directly waved her hand and gave it to Zhou Yingshuang. In order to make friends with my grandfather, many people have stepped on the threshold of my family. There are so many people who want to marry me. According to my mother and grandmother, there are many people who we didn't dare to dream of in the past. Now they are waiting for us to choose. I don't need to add to the limelight. When it came to her marriage, she was also careless. Although Yingshuang has been engaged, it's good to give her some confidence. You are the future wife of the prince. If her husband sees that you are on good terms with her, he will definitely be proud in the future. Well, it felt very good to be able to support others one day, although in essence she was relying on others. Are you still going to Yingshuang's place? Let's go now. I want to take this opportunity to go out. My mother is very strict with me. Usually she won't let me go out. If you are there, she will definitely agree. Yuan Chaoqiao's temperament was relatively more outgoing. She would definitely feel uncomfortable being locked up at home. After asking for his aunt's opinion, Luo Ronghui agreed without hesitation. After leaving the door, Yuan Chaoqiao complained to Jingwen, "You are my mother's daughter. I begged her for half a day, but it was not as effective as a word from you. Sorry, chief, and prefecture is very far from the capital. Even if my mother took me from someone else, it would not be your family," Jingwen said with a smile. Yuan Chaoqiao directly rolled her eyes at Jingwen. When they arrived at the Zhou residence, they found that Zhou Yingshuang was embroidering her dowry. Has the wedding date been set? Before the new year? Jingwen asked. Zhou Yingshuang had a shy and sweet expression as she nodded. 10th of October. The speed seemed a bit fast. Jingwen thought that they would have to wait until next year. When she understood the purpose of Jingwen's visit and knew that Yuan Chaoqiao did not hesitate to let her have him, she was grateful and naturally agreed. Thus, they spent another half a day at the Zhou residence. 2 days later, it was the 15th of August, the Mid-Autumn Festival. Lu Qingdi gave another long holiday. Other than those who had to stay in their positions, everyone else went home. He also said that there would only be a family banquet in the palace tonight. The officials would quickly go back to their own homes to reunite. The reunion banquet was held in the courtyard. When there was still more than 2 hours before nightfall, all kinds of lanterns were hung up. They were tied to bamboo poles with ropes, erected high on the roof eaves or balconies, or built into various shapes with small lanterns. The trees in the courtyard and the rockery were also decorated. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653277. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Biku Pavilion Mobile Reading Website, M. Bicken. Chapter 218. The so-called tile tower lantern was a tall hollow tower made of bricks and tiles. Firewood was added to the fire and it was lit after the moon worship. The moon worship this time was naturally different from the moon worship at home. The scene was very grand and the venue was set in the square in front of Wandenghua. Wandenghua was the main building in the capital that hosted large-scale gatherings. It was 3 stories high and there were a total of 9,999 lanterns inside and outside the building. However, all the lanterns were lit only 2 or 3 times a year. There was still some distance to Wandenghua. Everyone got off the carriage and prepared to walk. Tonight, There was no need for servants to carry lanterns to lead the way. The place they were at was already brightly lit. The lanterns came from all directions and the small shadows gathered at their feet. Jingwan was amazed by such a scene. Qian Prefecture also celebrated the festival, but it was still not as grand as this. It was only the Mid-Autumn Festival. She wondered how grand the Lantern Festival would be. A few older brothers went out as escorts. Speaking of which, the eldest sister-in-law, little Wang Shi, would only be out of confinement tomorrow. This was extremely fortunate. If the child was born a day earlier, it would be the Mid-Autumn Festival on July 15th. That would be terrible. It would be another kind of ghost child. In fact, when they went out, Jingwan wanted to let her eldest cousin brother and third brother stay at home to accompany her wife. However, the elders did not agree. Jingwan did not know what little Wang Shi was thinking. On the other hand, Sun Yijia was purely chasing Luo Jinghua out. She was fine at home with a large group of people accompanying her. It did not matter whether she was there or not. However, it was different when her younger brothers and sisters went out. They were not few in number, so how could there not be a few older brothers following them? Moreover, the few people from the Gu family also shamelessly followed them. However, Jingwan ignored them. That Miss Lian still wanted to be Luo Jinghua's concubine. Although Jingwan blocked her path rudely, when the girl saw her cousin, Luo Jinghua, although she did not say anything, she still looked like she was about to cry. Her expression was gloomy, as if she was looking at a heartless man in the carriage. Luo Jinghua met them 2 or 3 times. They had goosebumps all over their bodies and took a detour when they saw him. The brother and sister pair ignored them, so the other brothers and sisters of the Luo family naturally treated them as invisible people. Luo Jinghua walked beside Jingwan and told her about the various festivals in Beijing. Naturally, he was able to bring out a lot of interesting things. Jingwan was very happy to hear this. Originally, Jingwan was already engaged, so her protector should be a certain someone. It should be known that tonight was a good time to openly date. Unfortunately, the emperor had set up a family banquet. Even if he wanted to come out and compensate Jingwan, it was definitely not now. If Emperor Lu Chengdi had a stroke and did not let her go, and wanted to hold a small lantern festival in the palace, he would probably come out even earlier. According to a certain someone's character, if he wanted to use those boring things to trap him, it was better to wash up and sleep. It was easier to come out in dreams. Although there were a lot of people because there were guards around the courtyard, the journey was very easy. There would definitely not be a crowded situation. Those commoners would also not come here. After all, this was a place where high officials and nobles parked their cars. If they squeezed in for no reason, they might be accused of having bad intentions. How wronged would that be? If they had nothing to do, they would generally not come here. This was also the first time Jingwan saw the 10,000 lanterns tower. At this moment, the lanterns inside and outside the tower were all lit up. It was brightly lit and looked like a big shining treasure. If one looked at it from afar, the effect would probably be even more realistic. At this moment, the incense table had already been set up and all the tributes were also on the table. Several towers had also been built around it. Not only were they hollow, but in order to conform to the meaning of unity, the towers were also left with round holes. It looked very artistic and beautiful. It was much more troublesome than making square holes. Jingwan only knew from her third brother's explanation that if one stood on the central axis of the lanterns and saw the moon hanging over the top of the lanterns, the moon worship would begin. Jingwan stood over to take a look and estimated that there was not much time left. I wonder which madam is in charge of the moon worship this year. It's the wife of the left assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue. Jingwan listened from the side. She also knew from her third brother that there would be a different person in charge of the moon worship every year. The left assistant minister of the Ministry of Revenue was noble consort Sue's biological brother. The person in charge of the moon worship tonight was her sister-in-law. The left and right assistant ministers of the Ministry of Revenue were not on the same page. However, if the current Minister of Revenue stepped down, This position would most likely fall into the left assistant minister's hands. Prince Rue and the others had always been plotting. Perhaps it would happen in the next 1 or 2 years. Jingwen thought for a moment. It seemed that her father's name was in the Ministry of Revenue. Elder sister, elder sister. Just as Jingwen was a little distracted, Yu Yao rushed up from behind and hugged her. Jingwen pulled her and turned around. Yu Yao, you're here. Just you alone. Other than father and mother, everyone else in the family came out. I didn't want to stay with them, so I directly came here. Yu Yao said. Jingwen glanced at the group of servant girls and matrons who were closely following her. She was not worried that anything would happen to her. Although Yu Yao had spent more time with Jingwen, the age gap between the two of them was quite large. When there were children of the same age, Yu Yao was more likely to play with them. This allowed Yu Yao to get to know her 2 younger cousins. The 2 young ladies quickly chattered together. Not long after, Yuan Xiaoqiao and Zhou Yingshuang appeared together. There were also many other people who knew each other. They greeted each other. As time passed, more and more people gathered. Jingwen guessed that this place and this time should be the most crowded place and time tonight. A beautiful middle-aged woman arrived. The moon worship was about to officially begin. The seats in the middle were all empty. The servants and men of each family all retreated. Although the moon worship was entirely voluntary and there were no rules about who should stand where, there were unspoken rules everywhere. Those with lower backgrounds would consciously move back a little, and those girls from commoner families could only stand at the periphery. Jingwen directly led Yu Yao to the front. At this time, there was no need to be modest. Jingwen's aunt's younger sister-in-law subconsciously followed Jingwen. However, she was stopped by someone. Miss Gu, that's not a place for you to go. It's okay if you don't know the rules, but don't implicate the Luo family and make others say that they don't know the rules. The girl's eyes immediately turned red. However, she was not as innocent as the other mother and daughter. She did not really cry. However, the shame in her heart made her feel as if her internal organs were on fire. She kept feeling that the people around her were looking at her and pointing at her. This made her feel ashamed and angry. She was so ashamed that she did not dare to raise her head. The 5, 6, and 7 girls of the Luo family glanced at her. They did not even want to go to the front. Naturally, no one cared about this small episode. The entire moon worship process was similar to the one at home. Did not take long. After the moon worship, the crowd dispersed. They played, finished the lanterns, enjoyed the lanterns, and played games. Although they did not really play for the whole night, it was appropriate for them to play in the middle of the night. Yu Yao and the 2 girls of the Luo family who were slightly older than her got along well. They wanted to meet up and play together. Yu Yao had enough people and the Luo family could also spare some people. Therefore, there was no need to worry about their safety. They only needed to arrange a time and place to go home and let them go. Yuan Xiaoqiao excitedly pulled Jingwen and Zhou Yingshuang to play with the water lanterns. The river that passed through the city was just beside them. They did not need to go through Tyrant. There were many river lanterns by the river. There were many styles and most of them were still lotus-shaped. Yuan Xiaoqiao bought a lot of them in one go. She said that everyone in the family would have one. Jingwen and Zhou Yingshuang did not know whether to laugh or cry. The river lanterns were wishing lanterns or praying lanterns. If a person wished or prayed for blessings, the gods would not be able to take care of it. If you wanted to release so many by yourself, it would be even more impossible to fulfill your wish. However, this was just for show. She wanted to express her wishes or write something unrealistic. Jingwen originally wanted to wait for her cousin Xiaoqiao to spend a lot of time writing something. In the end, she directly took out her pouch and took out a piece of paper that she had already prepared. She placed one in each of the water lanterns. Her movements were very nimble. Alright, this was not an impromptu idea at all. Jingwen only bought one lantern. After thinking for a bit, she wrote, "My family is safe and sound. What about this prince?" His words were so close to her ear that it scared Jingwen quite a bit. She turned her head to glare at the culprit who had suddenly appeared. She gritted her teeth and said, "Your Highness, people can scare people to death if they try to scare people." Li Hongyuan curled his lips into a smile. "It's this prince's fault. Next time I'll definitely remind you earlier." The killing power of this bastard's smile was too great. Moreover, his face was so gentle. It was simply too frightening. That's why it was said that this person who looked good really had its benefits. Jingwan thought that she was also a common person. Li Hongyuan also took a lantern and quickly wrote a few words. Jingwan didn't go to look. Because of a certain person's appearance, the surroundings had become a bit strange. For example, Zhou Yingshuang and Yuan Qiaoqiao had become more restrained. Their smiles had stiffened a lot. At the same time, there were people who were secretly looking over here. Some recognized them, some didn't. In short, Jin Qinhuang, who had restrained his hostility, was very eye-catching. Jingwan inadvertently glanced at her aunt's sister-in-law, Miss Gu, who had been following her like a little tail after coming out. She was staring at a certain person in a daze. That expression was as if she had lost her soul. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653300. HTML chapter error. Click here to report, registration free. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com mobile version reading website, M. Bicken. Chapter 219. The scourge didn't have the slightest self-awareness of being a scourge. Other people's gazes would never affect him. Those who had the courage to come up to him were definitely not afraid of death. Thus, there was no need to be polite to this kind of person. Li Hongyuan gave his lotus lantern to Jingwan. "I'll play what you wrote. You wrote everything about yourself, right?" Jingwan didn't reach out her hand. She just looked at him quietly. Li Hongyuan seemed to understand the meaning in her eyes. He nodded shamelessly. Wan doesn't have this prince in her heart. This prince can only let others know that you have this prince in your heart, and only this prince. Jingwan was extremely speechless. Even if this young lady fell in love with you in the future, you definitely wouldn't be the only one in my heart, let alone now. However, Jingwan had also seen his stubbornness in certain aspects. There was no use in being in a deadlock with him. It would probably only attract more people to watch. She took the lotus lantern from his hand. Why did Prince come out at this time? After asking, Jingwan realized that she had made a stupid mistake. "Prince, just pretend this subject didn't ask." A certain person originally wanted to say, "Does Wan really want to know?" His wife was so enthusiastic that he couldn't refuse. Alas, what a pity. How could he take back what he had said? However, Wan's skin was thin. If she really said something that she shouldn't say in public, she should be angry. "Let's go play the lantern." Jingwan glanced at her two good friends beside her. This young lady wasn't the kind of person who would abandon her best friends for a man. Li Hongyuan just followed her gaze and glanced. The two girls who were originally a little fascinated by the man suddenly felt their scalps go numb. It was likely that all the hair on their bodies stood up. This man really wouldn't become a good person. If they were charmed by him, they would die without a burial place. One told them to stay, the other told them to scram. Speaking of which, as good sisters, they naturally thought of each other in everything, so they squatted down and quickly scram. Jingwan glanced at the water lantern left behind by her cousin. She was really too disloyal. Why did she have to be that kind of person? So she was indeed a scourge. It was fine if she was a scourge, but she was also a scourge. Jingwan carries 2 water lanterns to the riverside and steps on the stone stairs to the bottom. The water surface is only 1 finger lower than the stone stairs under her feet. She squats down and puts the water lanterns into the river. In the slight ripples of the river, The water lanterns float away slowly like the water lanterns put by others. The world of lights on the water, the world of lights under the water, and the stars on the water surface. Jingwan looks at them quietly, hoping that her family members are all well. Well, barely including the scourge beside her. Li Hongyuan stood beside Jingwan. She looked at the water lantern while he looked at her. To their left and right, there was no one more than 10 meters away from them. Even further away, there was clearly a crowd of people. For a moment, it was as if the two of them were the only ones left in the world, and the clamor around them seemed to have vanished without a trace. Sure enough, wherever she was, his heart would always be at peace. However, this peace did not last long. He lowered his head, so his vision was not wide. But even so, someone broke in. 2 steps away from Jingwan. He squatted down in what he thought was a graceful manner and placed the water lantern on the table. Then, he clasped his hands together as if he was praying sincerely. Throughout the whole process, his head was slightly lowered and the back of his neck was exposed. Under the light, she looks very white and weak, which makes people want to break her ***. Seeing that their master, who was originally in a good mood, is shrouded by hostility in an instant, Eunuch Mu and his guards want to jump into the river to commit suicide. But before that, they just want to kill the biggest culprit first. Are you blind or what? Can't you see that there are so many people and no one dares to go over? Do you think others can't see your intention? A bitch is a bitch. Eunuch Mu cursed in his heart. But what should he do now? He can't really drag her away in front of Miss Luo. But the most annoying thing is, why did they let her go? There are so many people, but no one wants to stop her. What if it was an assassin who wanted to assassinate him? What the hell were they doing? What the hell were they doing? Their faces are gloomy, and their hearts are irritable. After praying, Miss Gu turned around and looked at Jingwan, revealing a gentle smile. Jingwan! Jingwan wants to roll her eyes. Miss, if you want to look at the person next to you, just look at him. If you want to know him or hook up with him, just go to him. You want to look at him but can't bear to look at him. To be honest, you are really not good looking. Li Hongyuan reached out and pulled Jingwan up. Let's go. He doesn't want to be ruined by irrelevant people now. Jingwan nodded. If it was Yuan Xiaoqiao, Zhou Yingshuang and the others, Jingwan would be happy to leave this man aside. But now, she would rather stay with this living king of hell. Miss Gu, who had been completely ignored, was furious and unwilling to give up. She already knew that this man was most likely Luo Jingwan's fiancé. He had a distinguished status, power and money. He was also very good-looking. He was simply her ideal husband. Even if he was someone else's fiancé, even if she could never become his official wife, she still did not want to give up just like that. She gritted her teeth and followed. But as the saying goes, dreams are plentiful, but reality is cruel. The guards, who have been tortured by their master's horrible eyes, said that if they let her get close, it will not be as simple as being punished when they go back. Eunuch Mu grabbed Miss Gu's arm tightly. His eyes really want to eat her alive. In fact, no one who follows a master like Li Hongyuan is pure. Even if Eunuch Mu has not been exposed to particularly bloody things, his bones have long been dyed black. Let go of me. Do you know who I am? Me tell you. Eunuch Mu covered her mouth with his hand. Miss Luo has not gone far with his master. If she is alarmed, he will be in serious trouble. Throw her into the river. It's enough to keep her alive. Miss Gu widened her eyes in disbelief. Her mouth was moaning, but she couldn't break free at all. The guard next to her was not polite at all. He tore a piece of her dress and stuffed it into her mouth. She wanted to take the thing out of her mouth with her hands, but her hands were immediately broken. He grabbed her by the back of her neck and exerted force. She rolled down the stone stairs and fell into the water with a splash. She struggled in the water, but her hands were broken, so she couldn't climb up. After struggling for a long time, she found that the water was not deep, only up to her waist. However, her feet were crooked and she almost stepped on air. She was still in shock and her mouth was still gagged. The pain in her arms was even more unbearable. Tears fell down, mixed with the water droplets rolling down from her hair, and she carefully moved inside. Just as she was about to call for help from the people on the shore, the guard came down. She retreated in fear, but the guard quickly reached out and grabbed her hair. He pushed her into the water and after a while he pulled her up again. After repeating this several times, Miss Gu no longer had the strength to struggle and was on the verge of death. The guard carried her up and threw her on the stone stairs. He clapped his hands and left. From beginning to end, there was not a trace of emotion on his face. The whole process was seen by many people on both sides of the river. These people included several of the Luo family's elder brothers. Some timid girls didn't dare to watch and hurriedly left. Although some were also afraid, they seemed to be very curious and stayed. Naturally, there were also those who watched in high spirits. But each of them had their own complicated emotions. Among these people, Luo Jingbu's relationship with her was the closest. But at this moment, his face was expressionless. Don't talk about sympathy or pity. His eyes were simply looking at a dead object. His younger sister didn't want a third person to come between them, so she should be the same. He naturally didn't have any good feelings towards these people who tried to get close to his future brother-in-law. Jingbu, let someone send her back. After all, she came from our family. If we let her die here, even if it was done by Jin Qinhuang's people, it will not be good for our family's reputation. Luo Jingde whispered. Luo Jingbu nodded his head indifferently. However, her entire body was drenched and she was half dead. She couldn't ask the servants to carry her back. That way, not only would her reputation be ruined, the Luo family would also be criticized by others. If that Miss Gu was Jingwan's tail, then her niece Gu Lianer was Luo Jingbu's tail. Luo Jingbu tilted his head and saw Gu Lianer's pale face. Her tears were like broken beads, completely uncontrollable. Seeing Luo Jingbu looking over, she seemed to have found her backbone. Biaoge! She pitifully wanted to rub against him. Take your servant girl and send her back. Jin Qinhuang's people did it. If she dies, she will die in vain. Also, you should learn from this. If you think about something you shouldn't think about, you will probably end up the same. Luo Jingbu clearly warned. Gu Lianer might be a weak person, but she wasn't completely unable to understand human language. Her face was pale and she didn't dare to take a step closer. Luo Jingbu didn't care about her anymore. My younger brothers and sisters have run away. Let's go take a look. Luo Jingde and Luo Jingming nodded. Although they met every year, it was different every year. They were big men. It was enough to have their own manservants by their side. Watching them leave, Gu Lianer bit her lip and looked at her aunt who was motionless on the stone stairs. She also wanted to ignore her, but she couldn't. Was she already dead? She didn't dare to be sure. Xinli was very scared. She glanced at the servant girl who was at a loss. Why don't you go down and see your daughter? Obviously, she was also scared to death, but the servant girl had to go. Trembling, she went down and reached out her trembling hand. She found that she was still breathing. It seemed that she had just fainted. She couldn't help but cry with joy. Still alive. Of course she was still alive. Since she said to leave her with one breath, she naturally wouldn't kill her. In any case, she was still a relative of Luo Sangunyang. It wasn't good to kill her. However, this lesson was enough. If there was a next time, there wouldn't be another chance. Gu Lianer called her own servant girl to help. They helped her up and let the servant girl carry her. Step by step, they walked towards the place where the carriage was parked. Seeing the situation, those who didn't know were surprised. Did she fall into the river? Those who knew sneered. Jin Qinhuang's people held her down in the river, gagged her mouth and broke her hand. Jin Qinhuang took Luo Sangunyang to light the river lanterns. The two girls who were close to Luo Sangunyang all avoided them. She didn't even look at her own virtue. You didn't see her appearance at that time. It was simply too scary. Perhaps she thought that her beauty was unparalleled. Any man would be attracted. It's hard to say. They all say that Jean Qinhuang is walking the road of beauty and bones. That's not a joke. Jean Qinhuang was fond of beauty, but he had always been the one to choose. Those who threw themselves at him all didn't have a good ending. The bystanders looked at each other in dismay. They looked at the unconscious Miss Gu with pity, but more disdain. When the crowd had mostly dispersed, Yuan Qiaoqiao and Zhou Yingshuang reappeared by the river. They had seen the situation just now. At this moment, they looked at each other and didn't know what to say. After a moment of silence, Yuan Qiaoqiao suddenly laughed. "Yingshuang, it's quiet here. Let's hurry and light the lanterns. Otherwise there will be more people." She excitedly went to pick up a few river lanterns and called for the servant girl to help. At the place where Jingwan had placed the river lanterns, the place where Miss Gu had almost lost her life, Yuan Qiaoqiao put down the river lanterns one by one. She seemed to dislike them for moving too slowly and even used her hands to paddle the water. As for the river lantern hawkers who had never seen such a scene before, they were almost scared silly. They could only slow down on their own. As for the people who didn't know the situation, they were puzzled when they saw that there was a lot of space. However, because Yuan Qiaoqiao and Zhou Yingshuang were there, they didn't think much of it. They bought the river lanterns and went down. Jingwan strolled around beside Li Hongyuan. She looked around and felt the rich festive atmosphere. This was something that would never have happened in her previous life. Therefore, after so many years, Jingwan's love for the various festivals had never weakened. Moreover, the capital was very different from Qian Prefecture. The pavilion corridor built by the river had 9 bends and 18 bends. Lanterns of flowers, birds, fish, and insects were hung. Of course, there were also very square lanterns. The white paper was also painted with exquisite paintings. There were countless small games. Listening to the waves of cheers and applause, it was a lively and prosperous scene that belonged to this era. "Do you want it?" Li Hongyuan's voice softly sounded in her ear. Jingwan subconsciously rubbed her ear. She turned her head to look at him, then shifted her gaze to the high platform full of lanterns. The lanterns were obtained after 3 rounds. The final prize was hung in the middle of the platform. It was a colored glass lantern. It didn't have an ordinary appearance. It was a person standing on auspicious clouds and holding a jade rabbit. Although it was only half the height of a person, it was vivid and lifelike. Because of the light inside the lantern, it didn't appear frivolous. Instead, it seemed to have the aura of an immortal. This kind of craftsmanship was amazing. It was no wonder that there were so many people around. However, it seemed that there weren't many people who made it to the second round. "Wan, if you want it, I can take it." Jingwan tilted her head. "Troublesome, don't get so close to speak." Speaking with a normal tone was already breaking the rules. What was he trying to do by lowering his voice? "Take it." "How does Prince plan to take it?" "Forcefully take it." "If I forcefully take it and give it to you, won't people criticize you? If they scold Ben Wang, it doesn't matter." It was said that Jean Qinhuang had nothing good in his face. This knowledge was naturally included. However, Jingwan dared to conclude that it wasn't the case. Since he said it out loud, he would definitely be able to use conventional means to get it. If he really did that, the things that he deliberately concealed would be exposed. She shook her head. "I just think it's very pretty. I don't want it." Li Hongyuan seemed to have seen through her thoughts. "It doesn't matter. So what if something was exposed?" "I really don't want it," Jingwan said. Her eyes turned, and then she suddenly lowered her voice. "Could it be that Prince wants me to face a beauty day and night?" There was a smile in her eyes, and there was a bit of ridicule. Li Hongyuan's face immediately darkened. Jingwan covered her mouth and laughed very happily. To be able to make her laugh so happily, Li Hongyuan's expression eased and he reached out to touch her face. When Jingwan saw this, she immediately took a step back. Tonight, even if a man and woman walked together, there wouldn't be any gossip. But if they were too intimate, it definitely wouldn't do. Prince, let's go. Saying this, she took a few steps back with a smile on her face. Then she turned around and leisurely walked forward. When they walked far away, a person came out from behind the lampstand next to them. It was Sun Yilin. He didn't call his friends, and he wasn't with his brothers at home. There was only a manservant by his side. The manservant looked at him with some apprehension. He knew how deep his young master's feelings for Luo-san Miss were. That kind of scene just now, for him, was like stabbing a knife into his heart. The smile on his face was getting less and less. Many times, to be silent from morning to night, it was impossible to say that he wasn't worried. Sun Yilin knew that he might meet Jingwan tonight. He also knew that Prince Jean might be with her, but he still came. He didn't go to the 10,000 Lanterns Tower during the moon worship. He wanted to try if he had that fate with her. After all, this neighborhood wasn't small. Even if he deliberately looked for her, he might not be able to find her. Facts proved that this fate still existed. Ignoring the pain from his heart, Sun Yilin turned his gaze to the lamp. After a moment he walked over. Sun Yilin's appearance caused even louder cheers. Everyone had great expectations for him. In fact, Sun Yilin really didn't let them down. When it came to words, he had never lost. Others worked hard but couldn't even pass half of the first level. But he didn't stop to rest and passed 3 levels in a row. He often blurted it out without even thinking. Finally, holding the beauty lantern, he finally revealed his first smile tonight, causing many women in the boudoir to blush and their hearts to beat. In recent months, there had been no news of him. When they met again, he seemed to be even more attractive. Such a person, they didn't know what kind of woman could be worthy of him. However, Duchess Ding didn't seem to be a good mother-in-law. Sun Yilin left the high platform, gave the beauty lantern to the servant, and walked in the opposite direction from Jingwan. Young master, will you send this lantern to the Luo family tomorrow? Keep it. Whatever my little sister needs, she has her husband. The servant silently shut up. Jingwan stepped onto the stone bridge and looked at the lake not far away. Countless water lanterns passed under the bridge, and all of them converged into the lake. It was as if the lake had merged with the stars in the sky. It was too beautiful to behold. Is this lake formed naturally? Jingwan asked curiously. No, it was dug by the great ancestor. Jingwan praised in her heart. Although the great ancestor was from a humble background, he was also very sentimental. The willows by the lake were rustling, the pavilions and the lights were waning. It could be regarded as a dating spot. Don't ask why Jingwan only thought of this instead of drinking water, because there was no shortage of water in the capital. The river was convenient for many people, but this lake was purely superfluous. Those boats, are they pleasure boats? There were more than 10 boats on the lake. The worst of them had 2 floors. At this time, they were slowly wandering on the lake. They were also brightly lit and magnificent. Li Hongyuan glanced at Jingwan. It seemed that he didn't quite understand Jingwan's meaning. Which one is the Huai Qin pleasure boat? Jingwan was very curious. Wanwan, why do you ask this? Isn't it because the courtesan of the Huai Qin pleasure boat took a fancy to my 3rd brother? Moreover, I heard that the Huai Qin pleasure boat is yours. The girls inside must be the ones you choose to see the guests. Jingwan looked at him. It seemed that she was purely curious, but also seemed to be teasing. Li Hongyuan's expression was a bit unpredictable. Who would tell this kind of thing to the girls in the back house? I not only heard it, but also wanted to see it. It was a pity, pleasure boats and the like were all forbidden areas for girls. If they dared to try, their spittle could drown you to death. After the wedding, Ben Wang will take you there. With him taking her there, she couldn't go anywhere. Jingwan was surprised. Soon after she smiled. This man was really. It's almost time. Let's go back. Li Hongyuan nodded his head in agreement. They didn't follow the original path and chose to go on the opposite side of the river. When they returned to the front of Wandenglu, the tile tower had already been completely burned up. It was like a pile of bonfires, but it was far more beautiful than bonfires. The tiles were burning red, and there was a kind of beauty like red jade in the fire. It far exceeded their original expectations. Meeting other Wangye and Wangfei didn't seem to be strange. Rui Qinwang invited Jin Qinwang to have a drink, and Li Hongyuan agreed. He turned to Jingwen and said, "Go back early and rest. Your family still has work to do tomorrow." Jingwen nodded. Rather than chatting with Rui Qinwang Fei, Jingwen was more willing to go back to sleep. So, without saying anything, she bid farewell to them and left under the escort of her maidservants. "Lao Lu, you're really serious now." Rui Qinwang smiled warmly. Li Hongyuan had always been too lazy to pay attention to this kind of probing. Li Hongming was somewhat sincere to her. She was afraid that Su Guifei had told him everything. Ah, the son of a ghost. The country and the throne were all fought for with blood. When Jingwan returned to the carriage, it was almost time for the appointed time. After all, several of her younger brothers and sisters were still young. They couldn't play late, so she sat in the carriage and waited. Sure enough, it didn't take long for them to appear one after another. However, Yu Yao didn't want to go home. Acting spoiled and acting shamelessly, Jingwan was also helpless. She discussed with Yu Yao's wet nurse and sent someone to report to Great Princess Royal's Fu and bring her back to Luo family. Yu Yao was overjoyed. Soon after, she abandoned Jingwan and went to find two sisters to play, throwing them away after using them. Jingwan couldn't help but laugh and scold when she found that two people were missing. "Where did they go?" "They already went back," Luo Jingbua said. "Went back." Jingwan looked to the side. There was indeed one carriage missing, and the coachman also expressed his affirmation. Since that was the case, there was nothing to say. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653301. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is exempted. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com. Bikugo mobile reading website. Bicken. Chapter 220. However, not long after Jingwan and the rest returned to the Luo family, they heard that the Gu family's short-sighted girl was about to die. Jingwan was extremely shocked. She was still fine before, how long had it been, and she was about to die. Jingwan didn't doubt it. This was the Luo family. The doctor was the Luo family's official doctor. How could the Gu family feign illness and feign death under her nose? Furthermore, would her own family lie to her about this kind of thing? Therefore it was definitely true. That aunt and niece pair came back early. It was very likely that something happened after she left. Jingwan pondered for a moment. That Miss Gu had just entered the capital. The people outside didn't have any enmity with her, so they wouldn't put her in a sack and beat her up. She also wouldn't have been raped and lost her chastity. Otherwise, when third brother said that she had already returned, he wouldn't have been so indifferent. The most likely thing was that she fell into the river. At this time, catching a cold could cause death. Drowning could cause a lung infection, causing a high fever. Jingwan decided to go and take a look. It wasn't that she was concerned about the other party, but purely to know what happened. Just as she walked out of the courtyard, she ran into Luo Jingbua. Apparently, their destination was the same. "Third brother, you should know what happened, right?" Luo Jingbua frowned and hesitated for a moment. In the end, he still told her what happened. Jingwan's footsteps paused. Alright, she really did fall into the water. But it wasn't an accident, it was man-made. And it was under the eyes of everyone. The only people who could do this kind of thing were the living Hell King and his subordinates. If it was other people, the emperor would have done it secretly. In a feudal society, under the imperial power, there were no human rights. Jingwan rubbed her slightly swollen temples. Luo Jinghua saw her like this and knew that she was kind-hearted. He was worried that she would be estranged from Jin Qin Wang. Little sister, Jin Qin Wang has already given you face, otherwise it could have been a corpse at that time. I know, I'm just worried that he has killed too many people and damaged his virtue. It's not good. The members of the Gu family were a little annoying, but their crimes did not warrant death. Initially, he only wanted to teach that Lady Gu a lesson, not take her life. However, this lesson was a little too harsh. Now that things had turned out like this, the matter was already irreversible. Could Jingwan still have a conflict with Jin Qinhuang because of her? Jingwan was very clear about who was close and who was distant. She was not a saint. Even if Li Hongyuan killed an unrelated person in front of her, she would not blame him. When Jingwan and Madame Gu arrived, other than Luo Rongyan, Madame Zhang, and the Gu family, Madame Luo and Madame Wang were also there. Madame Wang was in charge of the household affairs and had to be involved in all matters of the family. Madame Luo, as the person with the highest authority in the inner residence, should also come and take a look. However, at this time they were all very silent. The Fu doctor prescribed medicine, inserted needles, and fed the medicine to Lady Gu. Whether she could endure or not, it would depend on her own luck. Madame Gu and Madame Zhang hugged Gu Lian'er and kept crying. Jingwan's uncle. His eyes were red and he looked like he was on the verge of exploding in anger. Although he did not say anything, but looking at his appearance, it was likely that he wanted to put this account on the Luo family. Old Madam is not saying anything. Could it be that this matter did not happen? My good sister became like this after going out for a trip. Even the minister's residence is not so overbearing and unreasonable. If you don't give this Gu an explanation, even if I have to sacrifice my life, I will not let this matter rest. What kind of person was Madame Luo? How could she not see that this man's eyes were full of calculation? They came to the capital this time to borrow the Luo family's power, whether it was to seek an official position or to achieve other goals. However, in these few days, Luo Shangshu did not have any intention of paying attention to him at all. It was impossible for him not to be anxious. Now that such a thing had happened, he must be very happy. With such a handle, he would naturally try his best to gain benefits. Madame Luo was calm and collected. Even if you want an explanation, this old one needs to know what happened. If it was your sister who did something, this old one will definitely pursue the matter of you implicating the Luo family. Our Luo family is upright and upright. We will never say no to what we should take responsibility for. However, if it is something that we should not take responsibility for, no one can blackmail us. Only then did Uncle Gu realize that his attitude was too extreme. He only spoke viciously, but if he really went against the Luo family, it would undoubtedly be like striking a rock with an egg, and he would end up digging his own grave. Old Madam, I was also anxious for a moment. Please forgive me. After all, father and mother handed my sister over to me. Now that things have turned out like this, how can I explain it to them? As he spoke, he actually choked up. Jingwan and her sister looked at each other outside the door. This acting was also very good. It was no wonder that they could raise a girl like Gu Lian'er who would cry whenever she wanted. Her parents were both outstanding. With the excellent genes of both of them, she was definitely better than her parents. However, they had been back for a long time. Could it be that Gu Lian'er had not clearly explained what had happened? Madame Luo was indifferent. What kind of situation had she not seen before? How could she be deceived by such a small trick? Since your daughter and the servant girl were shocked and incoherent, and the other children of your family did not know anything, there might be someone among the children of the Luo family who knows. I believe that they would not be like your daughter and the others, who could not take the slightest shock. Call them over now and ask them. Even if they don't know anything, there are so many people at the Lantern Festival. We will definitely find out who is right and who is wrong. She then sent someone to call someone over. Since she had said this, Uncle Gu could not say anything more. He looked at his little sister lying on the bed with an unfathomable expression. Before the mother beside Madame Luo reached the door, the brother and sister outside the door asked the servant girl to open the door curtain and entered one after another. "Grandmother!" Madame Luo looked over and nodded. "You came at the right time. Do you know what happened?" The two first paid their respects, then Luo Jingbo recounted what happened. "Grandmother, who in the entire capital doesn't know what kind of temper Jean Qinhuang has? She shamelessly rushed forward, purely seeking her own death. If it wasn't for little sister, she would probably have fished up the corpse in the river. Moreover, she clearly knew that he was little sister's fiancé, yet she still acted like this. It's really disgusting. Don't even mention Jean Qinhuang's people. I also want to slap her into the river," Luo Jingbo said as he glanced at the unconscious little sister Gu. His eyes cold. Madame Luo's expression also became cold. "Is it all true?" Biaomei was also at the side at that time. Even if she couldn't explain it clearly, she wouldn't have been unable to nod or shake her head. Uncle Gu's face was green and white. He had provoked a Wang Ye. Sure enough, even if he died, he would have died in vain. He glared at Gu Liener. "Is what your Biaoge said true? What are you crying for? Quickly say it." Gu Liener was startled and cried even more pitifully. She seemed to nod with difficulty. Madame Luo stood up. "Then there's nothing to say about this matter. According to seniority, your little sister is Wan's elder. This old one has never seen such a shameless thing in my life. This niece wants to be my grandson's concubine. She really has a family history. Eldest daughter-in-law, arrange for someone to send her to the manor overnight. Tomorrow is your grandson's 1-month birthday. If she dies at home, wouldn't it be bad luck? Whether she lives or dies, it all depends on her luck. Your family move out of the Luo family within 3 days. Otherwise, don't blame this old one for mercilessly sweeping you out of the house. Zhangshi, you better draw a clear line between you and them. Otherwise, take the letter of divorce and get out of the Luo family." Madame Luo finished speaking and directly left. It could be seen that she was really angry. Wangshi and Jingwan siblings all left with Madame Luo. Zhangshi sat there in a daze, not knowing how to react. Luo Rongyan pulled her. "Let's go. What are you still doing here?" Zhangshi seemed to have found her backbone and tightly grasped his hand. "Husband, we'll talk about it when we get back." He didn't want to stay in this place. He didn't care about this family. Uncle Gu wanted to keep them, but no one paid any attention to him. After Madame Zhang got married, Luo Rongyan was the center of her life. Her children occupied the edges and corners of her life. There was still a thread that connected her maternal family. If she maintained a good relationship with everyone, then naturally there would be peace. However, if someone threatened her marriage, then not to mention her married sister, even her parents, she would cut ties with them. Uncle Gu clenched his fists and glared at the mother and daughter who were still crying. "Still crying? Look, this is all your fault." Eating and living in the Luo family's house was naturally much better than before. Luo Shangshu didn't say anything, and they didn't want to look for a house outside. However, they had no choice now. After all, if they were really kicked out, it would be too embarrassing. Zhangshi didn't expect things to turn out like this. She only thought that her sister was easy to manipulate. If she could be like a fish in water in the Luo family with that kind of personality, then her mother-in-law must be soft. Who knew that her prediction was completely wrong? "How can you blame me? Isn't it all your sister's fault? She's trying to climb up the social ladder. How can she covet a noble? I told you not to take her with us. Now that we've completely offended the Luo family, are you satisfied?" Zhangshi was a little flower outside, but not in her own home. Zhangshi's face was livid. Indeed, his daughter was wrong, but more importantly, his sister had completely angered Madame Luo. They heard the most in the Luo family about how much Madame Luo loved her third granddaughter. Therefore, when Zhangshi sent people to take Gu Xiaomei away, Their family couldn't stop them. They couldn't wait to help get her away. After Zhangshi heard it, Zhangshi didn't comment. She had seen many such selfish people. When they were useful, they were like blood-sucking bugs. When there was a problem, they would push the blame to others and couldn't wait to kick them to death. Zhangshi didn't have any opinions about Zhangshi. Zhangshi had long known about her. Zhangshi sent Gu Xiaomei away just like that, without causing any waves. As for whether she could see her again, it depended on whether she could endure it or not. The next day, Jingwan and the others came out of the main courtyard to pay their respects and went directly to the first branch. Yu Yao, who refused to go home last night, also followed. Speaking of which, she was the most compatible with the legitimate daughter of the fourth branch. She didn't know if it was because this Miss Luo also followed Jingwan like a little tail when she was in Qi and prefecture and was deeply influenced by Jingwan. Little Zhangshi had finished her confinement and was neat and tidy. She didn't look much plump. After all, when she was pregnant she didn't look good, but she was in good spirits. When she saw Jingwan and the others, she smiled very happily. Jingwan and the others looked at the child. They had seen him when they just came back. It had only been a few days, but they felt that he seemed to have grown a little. Children really grew older. Because he was a little thin and weak when he was born, they took very good care of him. Now he looked white and chubby. His eyes were big and round and especially bright. Jingwan guessed that there shouldn't be any problems with this child. Probably because she was pregnant. Sun Yijia liked the child very much now. She couldn't wait to take this little baby back and raise him. Little Zhangshi laughed. Sister-in-law, don't be envious. Wait a few more months until the one in your belly comes out. After a long time you will be annoyed. We'll talk about it when the time comes. For now let me cherish him. They chatted and laughed around the little baby, and guests came one after another. The first guests who came were naturally the members of the Wang family. They were Madame Wang's biological mother, several sisters-in-law, younger sisters-in-law, and 2 younger niece-in-law. This branch of the Wang family was also flourishing. Because he was the eldest grandson of the eldest branch and the first one in the 4th generation. He was naturally very important, so the ceremony was very grand. The officials in the imperial court couldn't come, but their family members also came. For those who were not suitable to visit, such as the princes. As for Luo Jingbu's wedding, because Li Hongyuan took the lead, others followed. This time Li Hongyuan only sent gifts. Naturally, it was not appropriate for his wife to visit, but he sent a lot of congratulatory gifts. Great Elder Princess also sent someone to send a lot of congratulatory gifts. Yu Yao became the representative of Great Elder Princess's mansion. She ran around the Luo family happily. Those who saw her also had some thoughts in their minds. However, she was just a child. Perhaps it only represented that the 2 families had a nominal relationship, but they didn't have any deeper contact. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653303. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com Mobile Edition website. Bicken. Chapter 221. As for the Grand Secretary, he didn't show up for most of the time at the temporary imperial residence. Everyone thought that he really couldn't make it. When he returned to the capital, if he didn't hand in a memorial and resign, then Lu Chengdi would directly remove him from his position. Who would have thought that he didn't stay quiet after returning to the capital but gradually began to show up? His spirit was getting better day by day, as if the capital's environment was more suitable for him. It was nourishing. Now he could show off his power in the cabinet again. Lu Chengdi didn't seem to have the intention of firing him. Speaking of which, Ruan Ruizhong had always been in the emperor's party and only listened to the emperor's orders. For Lu Qingdi, he was loyal and capable. There was no one more convenient to use than him. When Ruan Ruizhong was in the temporary imperial residence, he didn't show up and also cut off contact with Lu Qingdi. Course not. From time to time, he would write memorials to talk about the past and talk about the relationship between the emperor and his minister. Then he would give appropriate suggestions about the flood. While not forgetting their relationship, he also let Lu Qingdi know his ability. He also appropriately expressed that he was recuperating now in order to be more loyal to the emperor. Lu Qingdi was actually very clear about his physical condition. After all, it was the imperial physician who took Ruan Ruizhong's pulse. As for those memorials, why didn't the other princes know about it? Lu Qingdi was not a puppet emperor and naturally had his own channels and means. Otherwise, if he let his sons know everything clearly, he wouldn't be able to survive. After learning about Ruan Ruizhong's physical condition, Lu Qingdi didn't intend to dismiss him. Even if he wanted to deceive himself and tell himself that his sons were harmonious, he knew very well that they were suppressing each other on the surface because of political differences. Not to mention that there must be an undercurrent or even a bloody storm in the place where he couldn't see. In such a situation, changing the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet would definitely be a fierce battle. The person who sat on the throne in the end might not be to his liking. In this case, why bother to change? Anyway, he didn't take the matter of the Ruan family seriously and no one took it seriously. Originally, the source of everything was Ruan Fengfei. She was still a victim and didn't cause any big trouble. Therefore, it was really not that easy to put a label on Ruan Ruizhong. Lu Qingdi did not want to replace him, and Ruan Ruizhong himself was also very cautious. Even if they could not find anything that could be used against him, how could the others take him down? At this time, Prince Rui was probably the only one with a burning mouth. The others might only feel regret in their hearts. The Grand Secretary was still firmly held in Ruan Ruizhong's hand, not spitting it out. However, Prince Rui was different. His mother had thoroughly offended Ruan Ruizhong. He originally thought that this old thing wouldn't be able to climb back up, but who knew? He was the Grand Secretary of the Imperial Cabinet. All the memorials to major events in the world had to go through him. Even though there were still 3 cabinet elders in the Imperial Cabinet, he could still influence many things without batting an eyelid. He didn't need to side with anyone. He only needed to slightly target Prince Rui in certain areas to make him suffer a great loss. No one would even notice that something was wrong. Prince Rui knew this very well, so how could he not be anxious? After Imperial concubine Su learned of this matter, she could only say, miscalculation. Other than that, she couldn't do anything else, let alone say a word in front of Lu Qingdi. Imperial concubine Su was favored, but she was far from being able to participate in politics. Ruan Ruizhong knew how he had offended Luo Peishan. Naturally, he would find an opportunity to apologize. However, this kind of thing was naturally not easy to say. However, these old foxes in the officialdom could twist their words 78 times in their stomachs. Things that they already knew, if they were mentioned in a vague way, they would know everything. Then, they would have a few meaningful words. Well, they were probably all working for the same person. Well, since your family's matter has been dealt with and you have been kept in the dark for so many years, I will be magnanimous and not bicker with you. During the banquet, Luo Shongshu's great-grandson was carried out for everyone to see. He received a lot of praise. He was so small and didn't know anything yet. He was smart and had the appearance of great talent. In the future, he would definitely become a pillar of the country and so on. Everyone knew that this was flattery. Under normal circumstances, no one would pay attention to it. But Luo Peishan was in a good mood as a great-grandfather, so he naturally happily accepted it all. When the child was brought back, he brought back a lot of good things. It should be known that he had already received a lot of good things from the female guests before. After this little guy's 1-month birthday banquet, it was time to prepare for Jingwan's coming-of-age ceremony. On the 6th day of September, there were still 10 or 20 days to go. However, the big families would not complain about having too much time to prepare these things. They would only feel that it was not enough. If it were the royal family, it would be more cumbersome, especially when it was related to the dignity of the emperor. For example, the birthday banquet and so on, it would take at least 3 months to prepare in advance. Invitations were sent to many high officials and noble families in the capital. Although there were so many officials in the capital that if a plaque fell down, 2 of the 3 people who were hit by it might be officials, there were not many families who were qualified to be first-grade officials. Those who were below 3rd grade probably could only be relatives. Jingwan's status and her relationship with Great Elder Princess and Prince Jean were obvious. Her coming-of-age ceremony was at least several times more grand than the 1-month birthday banquet of the eldest grandson of the first branch of the Luo family. Because Great Elder Princess was present, the concubines of other princes and princesses would naturally be present, not to mention the madams and old madams of dukes' mansions and marquis mansions. As far as the current Luo family was concerned, perhaps only Luo Peishan's birthday banquet could be compared with this. As expected, when they learned that Jingwan's coming-of-age ceremony was about to be held, many people inquired about the candidate for the position. Although they knew that there might not be anyone who would accept the position in the end, they still couldn't help but think about it. Apart from other things, Great Elder Princess would be the guest of honor. If she praised the candidate, the status of their daughter would immediately rise a lot. Yes, no one had different ideas about the candidate of the guest of honor. The Luo family didn't hang on to this matter. They directly announced to the public that they had found a candidate and had obtained the other party's consent. Therefore, since those who had the idea didn't get the news, it had nothing to do with them. Although they didn't directly say who the candidate was, they still knew it after inquiring about it. After all, it was not a secret. However, this final result made many people feel a little strange. They had a biological sister. Even if she was too young and unsuitable, there was one who was only a year younger than her. Even worse, there were still cousins. In the end, she chose an outsider. What should they say? Of course, as an outsider, they would only grumble in their hearts and wouldn't say anything. But as a relative, they would definitely be unhappy. As a relative, they would support an outsider instead of a relative. They had never seen such a heartless and unscrupulous person. Of course, they wouldn't say such harsh words out loud, but that was what they meant. They even hoped that Jingwan would be replaced. However, these people were all stopped by Madame Luo. With her there, no one dared to act rashly. This matter didn't reach Jingwan's ears. However, even if she knew, Jingwan wouldn't change her expression. She was an emotional and cold-blooded animal. So what? The Zhou family was quite happy. After all, their daughter generally didn't have a chance to show her face in front of Great Elder Princess in her life. Because she was already engaged, they didn't care whether she could be favored by those noble ladies or not. However, Zhou Yingshuang's uncles and even her father felt a little regretful that she was engaged too early. If they had known that today would happen, they should have broken off the engagement with the Chancellor of the Imperial College now. When Zhou Yingshuang learned about it, she burst into tears. At that time, when she was blind, the other party still agreed to this marriage. Now, she just wanted to show her face, and they wanted to break off the engagement. Did she think she was noble just because she showed her face? She was so snobbish and heartless. How could she still want to find another man? She might as well not get married and be a sister-in-law for the rest of her life. Zhou Yingshuang was so angry that she almost didn't want to be the assistant. Fortunately, her mother stopped her. If you really did that, wouldn't you be wasting Miss Luo's and Miss Yuan's good intentions? Don't bother with them, your grandmother is still above. If they dare to say such things, your grandmother will fly and break their legs. Time went by in a busy way. Soon it was the 3rd day of September. After writing their resignation on a piece of paper, Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang went to Great Elder Princess's mansion in person. They first greeted her verbally and then submitted their resignation. 2 days later, The couple went to Great Elder Princess's mansion again. Great Elder Princess gave them a reply. On the 6th day of September, the Luo family opened the door to welcome the guests. Although most of the guests were female, they were all noble, so Madame Luo had to cheer up to welcome them. When Li Hongyuan came in person, it seemed that there was nothing strange. As for the other brothers, it was even less strange. However, these noble masters found that there seemed to be servants of the Luo family serving them. Others didn't feel anything, but Prince Rue felt a little guilty. After all, he had once seduced a girl in the Luo family. Now there was no suitable girl for him to seduce, but he was guarded against as if he was a thief. Li Hongyuan glanced at him. He was the one who added fuel to the fire about Luo Jingying. Today was his sweetheart's big day. If anyone dared to make trouble, he would be the first to kill him. As the star of today's ceremony, Jingwan was preparing for the East Room. At this time she had finished bathing, changed her clothes and sat down to wait. Beside her, there were not only the host and assistant, but also the people who were close to her. Seeing that it was almost time, Great Elder Princess left. Outside as the host, Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang stood on the steps to the east and waited. 3 assistants selected from their relatives stood on the west with trays. At this moment the music sounded. The graceful and noble Great Elder Princess walked in unhurriedly from the outside. Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang hurried to greet her. They bowed to each other and respectfully asked Great Elder Princess to sit in the host's seat. Then, many guests also sat in the audience seats. In the end, Luo Rongyan and Madame Zhang sat in the host's seat. When everything was ready, Luo Rongyan stood up and made a simple speech, announcing the official start of Jingwan's adulthood ceremony. Zhou Yingshuang came out first. She washed her hands and stood beside several assistants. Then Jingwan, dressed in a white robe, walked out unhurriedly. The white robe was a boy's robe. The style was simple and the color was monochromatic. Even so, it couldn't cover up Jingwan's style. Some people said that the simpler the clothes, the better the temperament and self-restraint of a person. Undoubtedly, this was the case on Jingwan. Digression. At the end of the month, the monthly tickets and evaluation tickets were cleared. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653304. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book. www.bicken.com mobile edition website, bicken.com. You're tuning in to the Whispers of Romance YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.